Chapter 96. Outside Cold Sky City, on a desolate mountain, Nian Qingyun gazed at the majestic ancient city hidden in the depths of the sunset sacred mountain. An enormous phoenix that was completely covered in pure gold stood silently by his side, and its eyes actually carried a wisp of melancholy. Feng, do you think I'm really going to marry that young masterling people? Nian Qingyun's face was still covered with a white veil. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. Yes, Nian Qingyun was confused. Why was she forced to marry a playboy who she had never seen before when she was wholeheartedly cultivating the great Tao of ruthlessness? Moreover, Ling Zhao's notoriety was known throughout the Shenzhou continent. Countless prides would silently curse him when they heard his name. Hell push! Nian Qingyun was the true phoenix of the Shenzhou continent. Why did she have to be associated with such a scumbag? Nian Qingyun, the fiancé of young masterling people, Ling Xiao. Hell push. I hope that young man won't disappoint me. A trace of gentleness flashed across Nian Qingyun's face. She turned to look at the golden phoenix beside her and reached out to stroke its feathers. Feng, wasn't the young man we met at the foot of the mountain very valiant and extraordinary? Chirp. The crimson gold spirit phoenix let out a cry to the sky. 1,000 miles away, a young man who was cultivating with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. It's Qingyun. She's also in the mountain. Elderling, can you feel her aura? Yes, but have you really thought it through? Do you want to be enemies with the Ling family? I heard that young Master Ling Xiao is extremely cruel. If you provoke him, you won't be able to live peacefully for a long time. Elderling's voice was filled with worry. According to his plan, Lin Shi only needed to secretly take the spirit fruit of Tao and the undying heart flame while young Masterling people was engaged. Then, this trip would be complete. There was no need to tease the supreme ancient race. A young man at the peak of the profound, clear stage could be considered monstrously talented among the younger generation of the Shenzhou continent. But in front of the ancient race's Ling people, he was just an ant. In front of the masters of all the orthodoxies in the eastern border of the Shenzhou continent, he had ruthlessly slapped the young master's face. Yes, Ling people would not attack Lin Shi on the spot. After all, they still had to take care of their reputation. But wouldn't they kill you behind your back? In Elderling's opinion, it was extremely foolish to offend a supreme Taoism for a woman. Elderling, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've already made up my mind. From the day I detoxified Qingyun, I've already decided to be her man. A trace of blurriness flashed across Lin Shi's eyes. That kind of taste was really irresistible. That kind of fragrant and sweet taste mixed with a trace of earthy smell was the most intense stimulation he had ever experienced in his life. Sure, on the path of cultivation, everything is just scenery. Only strength. Elderling, didn't you always teach me that I have to fight against a man? That Ling Xiao is known as the strongest genius in the eastern border. If I can defeat him, my name will definitely spread throughout the eastern border. At that time, if Ling and father are still alive, they will definitely hear my name. A trace of sadness flashed across Lin Shi's face. This time, he went to the Ling people to crush Ling Xiao after careful consideration. Firstly, he wanted to let all the geniuses in the Shenzhou know that Nian Qingyun was his and no one should covet her. Secondly, of course, he wanted to stand out and make a name for himself. This way, when his sister and father heard his name, they would be able to find him. All right, since you've made up your mind, I won't say anything else. However, there will definitely be many experts at the Ling people's engagement this time. I won't be able to help you when the time comes, so you have to be careful. Elder Ling hesitated for a moment and finally reminded Lin Shi, sure, although you have my 9-dragon lightning flame in your body, it's best that you don't use it in front of Emperor Realm experts. Otherwise, if they get greedy, Elder Ling, don't worry. I know. Lin Shi sneered and clenched his fist. A huge, pitch-black heavy ruler instantly appeared in his hand. You're just a piece of trash. Why should I use the power of the spiritual fire? On the Ling people's cloud peak, Ling Zhao's figure flashed out. Although his aura didn't change at all, When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a faint flicker of divine light. Xi Jingnan's divine soul had been completely merged with his soul palace. Sometimes there was only one chance. If he missed it, he would be doomed eternally. Ling Xiao wasn't an indecisive person. Although he lost a God King puppet, it was worth it in exchange for a stronger soul palace. Nine Nether's figure was sitting cross-legged in the distance. At this moment, a layer of bright golden light had already lit up on his body. Terrifying blood energy surged. It was obvious that the pills refined by the moon of Xianyuan had begun to take effect. Ling Xiao opened the system store out of boredom and browsed through the products inside. Now, he had used all his villain points to exchange for the spirit beast egg. He still had 1,600 points of luck left. But Ling Xiao didn't dare to touch it easily. Without luck, what could he use to compete with the Son of Destiny? Sigh, it seems that I have to quickly find the next chosen one. Ling Xiao sighed and took out the pills that his mother gave him from his Chinquan bag. It was a 5th-grade breakthrough pill. When Ling Xiao returned from the northern wilderness that day, the moon of Xianyuan sensed that his aura had reached the peak of the mystic pure stage. That was why she refined this breakthrough pill. Perhaps it could help Ling Xiao take that step in one go. A 17-year-old Paong stage cultivator, even in the Shengzhou continent, was absolutely unprecedented. Although the chosen and young lords of the Supreme Sage Orthodoxies were mostly in the breakthrough pill, but there was no doubt that they were much older than Ling Xiao. Without his villain points, he could only rely on pills to cultivate. Ling Xiao reached out and put the white pill in his mouth. A dense spiritual energy instantly engulfed his body, and black clouds suddenly gathered above the firmament cloud peak. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. The black clouds above the firmament peak had completely crushed Ling Xiao's head. The divine thunder buzzed like purgatory. Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. In the next instant, he took the opportunity to hide in the 8 Desolation glazed pagoda while the tribulation lightning was about to strike. The commotion here was too great, and Ling Xiao did not want to expose his strength. Moreover, Nine Nether was still rebuilding her physical body. Once the lightning struck, she would most likely be implicated. However, although Ling Xiao hid in the pagoda, the tribulation lightning did not intend to let him go. Hundreds of lightning dragons began to appear in the sky above the ancient pagoda. Miyong looked at the tribulation lightning above his head in horror. His dark red eyes were filled with shock. Right at this moment, the first bolt of lightning struck down. Instantly, lightning filled the air around Ling Xiao. He had already merged with the Thundered Outlaw. How could a mere tribulation lightning affect him? Boom! Boom! The sky was filled with thunderbolts. In the ancient pagoda, the young man's figure rose into the sky like the god of thunder. Endless divine light filled the air around him. His demonic body surged, and a dazzling dark light lit up. A divine watchtower appeared, spanning thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. At that moment, the sound of the great Tao resounded throughout the entire sacred land of the Ling people. The surging spiritual energy was like a boiling river, rushing toward the firmament peak. Chapter 97. Who's breaking through? Many powerful figures walked out of the palace and looked in the direction of the firmament peak. Is that the firmament peak where Lord Ling Xiao lives? Even with the concealment of the array, the sky above the firmament peak still shone with holy light, exuding supreme majesty. Shower has broken through. Ling Tianlin stood in front of the sacred palace with his hands behind his back. Ghost Shadow stood behind him respectfully. Although it was hard to tell who was stronger, Ghost Shadow seemed to be humble in front of Ling Tianlin. You said that young master wiped out the entire Xi clan yesterday. Yes, your majesty. Ghost Shadow's voice was extremely hoarse and sounded a little strange. Did anyone else see it? Other than the 2 divine overlords of the Ling people, there were no outsiders. Go, erase those 2's divine senses. Yes, your majesty. Ghost Shadow's figure disappeared again, but Ling Tianlin's face had a hint of inexplicable meaning. Shower, you really didn't disappoint me. Boom, boom. The tribulation, lightning, lasted for a long while before it finally dissipated. At this moment, Ling Xiao could feel that his spiritual power was like a raging wave that kept flowing in his meridians. Haolong state. He had finally broken through. Ling Xiao's mind moved, and a demonic figure suddenly appeared behind him. Compared to before, this demonic figure was now flickering with Tao inscriptions, and there was a faint, ancient, demonic aura that suppressed heaven and earth like a god. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." Miang's figure knelt on the ground. At this moment, he did not have the courage to look at Ling Xiao directly. The vast, demonic aura that was as vast as the sky filled his heart with fear. Haolong state is indeed the threshold of cultivation. It feels completely different from before. Ling Xiao clenched his fist, and the layers of space shattered. This feeling was like controlling heaven and earth, and making laws on behalf of heaven and earth. It's time to teach those old fogies a lesson. Ling Xiao sneered. When he looked up, he saw that Feng Ling had appeared not far from him. "Your aura is becoming more and more like that bone. Is that so? When are you going to take me up there?" Ling Xiao smiled faintly, the demonic light around him converging as he descended from the sky. The spirit beast egg still showed no signs of breaking. Even the life force fluctuations inside had quieted down in the past few days. Ling Xiao had once suspected that this was a dead egg. With your current cultivation level, you can probably only reach the 2nd floor. Of course, if you want to go to the 9th floor, I could bring you there. However, I can't guarantee that you won't be crushed to pieces. As the two of them became more familiar with each other, Feng Ling's tone had a hint of mockery. "Tisk, if you don't want to go then, so be it. Who are you trying to scare?" Ling Xiao rolled his eyes and looked in the direction of the entrance to the 2nd floor. He was curious about what kind of demon was sealed in the 2nd level of the Glazed Pagoda. Since Mi Yong was a 7th-level divine overlord, the demons on the 2nd floor must be at least King Realm, right? That guy on the 2nd floor is harder to deal with than this damned monkey. You better be careful. A sly look flashed across Feng Ling's face. In a flash, she disappeared from the spot. "Harder to deal with than Mi Yong?" Ling Xiao sneered. What kind of demon would dare to be impudent in front of his sky demon true body? "Let's go up and take a look." Ling Xiao and Mi Yong arrived at the entrance to the 2nd floor one after another. This time, the seal that originally existed didn't obstruct his figure. As expected, the Haolong state was the key to the 2nd floor. Buzz! The seal broke and Ling Xiao and Mi Yong appeared on the 2nd floor of the ancient pagoda. However, the space on the 2nd floor was no different from the 1st floor. It was still filled with endless darkness. Moreover, the oppressive seal was even more terrifying. Although Ling Xiao was the owner of the ancient pagoda, it was obvious that he was not strong enough to control the power of the pagoda. Why don't I feel the demon's aura? Ling Xiao furrowed his brows and snapped his fingers lightly. Immediately, a sun of thunder illuminated the sky above his head. "Miyong, be careful." Ling Xiao scanned the entire ancient pagoda, but still did not see any sealed demon. He was puzzled. Could it be that the demon on the 2nd floor was suppressed to death by the ancient pagoda? Ling Xiao smiled bitterly. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a familiar voice came from afar. "Ling Xiao, save me, Ling Xiao paused and turned to look in the direction of the voice. He saw Feng Ling clutching her chest and half sitting on the ground. Her eyes were filled with despair. "Feng Ling." Ling Xiao took a step forward and instantly appeared beside the girl. Only then did he realize that there was a bowl-sized bloody hole in Feng Ling's chest. Blood gushed out like a fountain and stained her clothes. It was just that she was originally dressed in black, so Ling Xiao did not notice at first. "Feng Ling, how are you? Who hurt you like this?" Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. Especially when he saw the girl's gradually weakening aura, he felt that it was ridiculous. They had clearly just separated, but who would have thought that this little girl of mysterious origins would be injured to such an extent? Don't say anything. Quickly take this pill. Miyong, be careful. Ling Xiao took out a spirit pill from his bosom, pried open the young girl's cherry lips, and stuffed it in. When Myung heard this, he immediately reverted to his original form and looked around cautiously. Monstrous demonic chi instantly surged, and an unparalleled pressure enveloped an area of 100 miles. Ever since Ling Xiao unsealed him, Myung's cultivation showed signs of a breakthrough. After 3,000 years of suppression, this divine overlord could not cultivate, but it was rare for him to calm down. What happened, Fengling? Who hurt you like this? Ling Xiao looked at the girl in his arms. His eyes glowed with devilish light. Although he did not know the girl's exact cultivation, he could sense a dangerous aura from her. Moreover, since she could come and go freely in the tower, who could hurt her? It's the second floor's Huanma. This guy is very bad. He turned into your appearance and tricked me, injuring my heart. Fengling coughed, and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. The pungent smell of blood permeated the air, making Ling Xiao even more worried. Huanma? What kind of Huanma can escape from your divine sense? I didn't see her face clearly. Ling Xiao, I'm so cold, so cold. Fengling reached out and hugged Ling Xiao tightly. Her small face helplessly leaned against his chest. Don't be afraid. It's okay. Do you know what level that Huanma is at and where he is now? Ling Xiao raised his head and looked around coldly. Devilish light flickered around him as if he was facing a great enemy. To be able to injure Fengling so silently, the Huanma's strength should not be underestimated. Isn't she in your arms? Chapter 98. Ling Xiao was stunned. The demonic aura in his body instantly surged, and his figure appeared 10 feet away. Io, Ling Xiao! Fengling fell to the ground. A trace of resentment flashed across her face. You have guts. You actually dare to pretend to be me. Above his head, a girl's voice sounded again. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed as he looked at the two identical wind chimes in front of him in horror. However, there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Fengling, you too. Who is the real one and who is the fake one? I thought you. As he spoke, Ling Xiao did not forget to turn his head and wipe his eyes. It was obvious that one of the two people in front of him must be the illusory demon. Moreover, even the aura on their bodies was exactly the same. Even with Ling Xiao's divine, king-level soul perception, he was unable to distinguish the slightest difference. If he did not have the eye of nirvana, he would have been deceived by this illusory demon. However, since she wanted to act, Ling Xiao was naturally willing to accompany her in acting out a bitter scene. Fengling's identity was too strange. If he wanted to ask something from her, he had to gain her trust first. Although Ling Xiao was not sure if she was here before, with this girl's personality, how could she not come to join in the fun? As for this illusory demon, in this god-sealing pagoda, who was the boss? At this moment, Fengling, who was thrown to the ground by him, suddenly screamed. As if she had seen a ghost, she knelt on the ground and trembled uncontrollably. Lord Fengling, you deserve to die. In the air, Fengling snorted coldly. Her white, jade-like face revealed a majesty that Ling Xiao had never seen before. At this moment, the entire glazed ancient pagoda seemed to be filled with an indescribable, strange aura. As for the black-clothed girl kneeling on the ground, the demonic aura around her dissipated, and she transformed into her original form. She was actually a beautiful woman dressed in black. The woman was about 20 years old and had long black hair that was like a waterfall. At this moment, her back was facing Ling Xiao, revealing a part of her white, jade-like neck. My lord, I only wanted to tease this human. I didn't mean to offend you at all. I beg you to show mercy and spare my life. Begging me is useless. He is the master of this tower. Your life is in his hands. Fengling raised her head and looked at Ling Xiao, her eyes filled with indescribable emotions. She had seen Ling Xiao's nervousness just now. She didn't expect this guy to be so concerned about her. Were those tears that he wiped away just now? What a joke. Acting, of course we are serious. Who are you? Ling Xiao walked in front of the Huanma, lifted her chin, and revealed a beautiful face. Although Ling Xiao had seen many beauties, none of them were as charming as this Huan Mo. It was a kind of tenderness that seemed to be carved into her bones, causing one to be unable to help but feel pity for her. Her dark, cold eyes and cherry-red lips were tightly pursed. Her tall nose let out a soft snort. Ling Zhao's mouth suddenly raised into a smile. He could understand that this Huan Mo's hostility towards him most likely came from his identity as the master of the 8 Desolation Glazed Pagoda. After all, these great demons in the pagoda were forcibly suppressed here by the master of the pagoda. You seem to have a lot of hostility towards me. Ling Zhao's body suddenly bloomed with the light of the sky demon. The coldness on the Huan Mo's beautiful face almost instantly froze. You're also a demon. This aura, you are. This is the new master. Hurry up and pay your respects. Mi Yong's figure came from the side and coldly looked at the Huan Mo under his feet. Chaotic demonic ape. It's really you. Weren't you sealed in the first floor? Humph. Following the master will naturally be free. Mi Yong snorted coldly. His figure shrunk again and turned into a human form, standing beside Ling Zhao. Huan Mo's layered shadow greets the master. The Huan Mo didn't hesitate at all. With a solemn expression, she directly bowed to Ling Zhao. But at this time, there was a trace of confusion on her face. She secretly looked at Feng Ling with a puzzled expression. Boring. Feng Ling pouted her small mouth and hatefully looked at Layered Shadow. Her figure instantly disappeared. Get up. Where's the seal on your body? Ling Zhao frowned at the woman in front of him. He still remembered that when he first met Mi Yong, the latter had 4 shackles of fear. Why didn't this Huan Mo have any? Master, it's here. Layered Shadow smiled bitterly and reached out to tear the clothes in front of her chest, revealing a snow-white stalwart. Gulp. Ling Zhao swallowed hard and leaned in front of Layered Shadow. He lowered his head and looked at the ancient rune on her chest. The rune was a strange blood-red color, like a lotus, flashing with scarlet light from time to time. What a strange rune. Ling Zhao's expression gradually became serious. He reached out to Layered Shadow's chest and carefully felt the delicate softness. This is a bit troublesome. Stacked Shadow stared dumbfoundedly at Ling Zhao's constantly changing position, sometimes gently rubbing and sometimes tightly clenching. His pretty face was already completely red. But at this time, the master's expression revealed a serious look. Clearly, he was thinking of a way to help her break the seal. Master, yes, very big, very white. No, very old, very troublesome. But it's not a problem for me. Bear with it. Ling Zhao took a deep breath. Demonic light flickered in his hand. Layered Shadow felt as if her entire body was being infected by demonic intent. The originally sealed spirit energy gradually surged. Boom! The sky demon light surged into the sky. Layered Shadow let out a shrill cry. Her beautiful eyes were filled with joy of regaining her freedom. 9th level Divine Marquis. Ling Zhao glanced at Folded Shadow in surprise. He had originally thought that the second seal would definitely be a great demon of the King Realm. But he didn't expect Layered Shadow's cultivation to be in the Divine Marquis realm. However, Ling Zhao was relieved when he thought of the illusory technique that she had used earlier. Her strength was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. You know that little girl, just now? Ling Zhao suddenly remembered Layered Shadow's fear and asked curiously. Master, I only know that her name is Feng Ling. I don't know anything else. Then why are you so afraid of her? She often comes here to play with me. Her aura seems to be innately able to suppress my demonic intent. Layered Shadow's eyes flashed with a trace of fear. Clearly, she suffered a lot in the hands of Feng Ling. Forget it. Seems like I have to go to the 9th level to take a look. Ling Zhao looked up and glanced at the void. You two can cultivate in the tower, but you can't leave the tower. Yes, Master. Mi Yong and Layered Shadow bowed. When they looked up again, Ling Zhao was no longer in front of them. At the same time, in the Ling people's divine palace, Ling Tianlin sat on the golden chair in the palace. Below him were 8 elders standing on both sides. Ling Tian and a few other handsome youths from the Ling family stood respectfully in the middle of the hall. Master, it's almost noon. Lord Ling Xiao is still not here. Are we going to keep waiting? The leader of the group, a white-haired elder, smiled faintly. At this moment, although his tone was respectful, the meaning behind it was self-evident. That's right, young Master Ling Xiao is so arrogant. Someone in the palace immediately agreed. Master, I don't think we need to wait. We don't think Ling Xiao will be the successor anyway. Why don't we choose one of them? Yeah, Ling Xiao is too arrogant and rude. We Ling people have been passed down for thousands of years. Since when have we had such a disrespectful successor? Yes. I think Ling Rue, the grandson of the great elder, is not bad. He's already at the peak of the Xianxing stage at such a young age. He's simple and kind, honest and loyal. Such a talented young man is the future of the Ling people. The 8 elders all talked at once. It was rare for them to be united. Elders, I think we should wait for my brother. After all, he's the young master of the Ling people. It's not appropriate for him not to come. At this moment, Ling Tian suddenly stepped forward and smiled softly. Little Tan. Many of the elders were stunned when they saw the young man with a straight back and calm eyes below the hall. Since when was this guy willing to speak up for Ling Xiao? When did the relationship between the two brothers change? Although no one in the Ling people knew about what happened back then. However, for Xin Yuan Yu to suddenly leave the Ling family, and for Ling Tian to be crippled in a single night, something was definitely fishy. Chapter 99. What a joke. Why would Ling Tian speak up for Ling Xiao? He just didn't want Ling Xiao to be absent from his day of fame. No, he wanted to step on Ling Xiao's head and become the successor of the Ling people. That way, his 7 years of forbearance and 7 years of bitter cultivation would not be in vain. After drawing the sword 100,000 times, he had an epiphany under Qinghuan Peak. The power of the Tao was enough to easily crush any cultivator below the Pang stage. The grandson of a great elder? He wasn't even fit to carry his shoes. Aha! Elders, let's wait a little longer. Let's go outside the hall and see if the young master has arrived. Ling Tianlin smiled faintly. The two brothers were finally starting to protect each other. This was the scene he wanted to see. Even if Ling Tian had lost all his cultivation, he was still the second son of the Ling family, and his words still carried some weight. Moreover, if his cultivation was not good enough, he could study other things. Tian, I heard that you've been practicing the way of the sword for the past few years. It just so happens that I have a close friend who is a top sword master in the Shengzhou continent. He's now the master of the 10,000 Swords Sacred Ground. I've already sent him a letter asking him to accept you as his disciple. He will also be present at your brother's engagement banquet tomorrow. You can follow him back to the 10,000 Swords Sacred Ground to cultivate. Ling Tianlin looked at Ling Tian lovingly. At this moment, Ling Tian just nodded with a smile and bowed. Thank you, father. Father, I'm afraid that brother's engagement banquet tomorrow is going to be ruined. After all, the ethereal Taoist palace had chosen Ling Xiao because of his identity. The eldest son of the Ling people's direct bloodline was most likely going to be in charge of the Ling people in the future. But today, as long as he stepped on Ling Tian to become the successor, the ethereal Taoist palace would definitely not agree to this marriage. At that time, Ling Xiao would lose both her and his money. No, it would be worthless. Elders, you're all quite early. Suddenly, a chuckle came from outside the hall, and Ling Xiao's figure walked in. His black robes were tall and straight, and he was as handsome as jade. In terms of appearance, Ling Xiao could indeed be said to be putting on airs. However, at this moment, the eyes of all the clan elders flashed with a hint of complexity. Ling people had 9 branches. In principle, each branch had the right to compete for the position of clan leader. It was just that Ling Tianlin was too strong, and no one in the previous generation was a match for him. Him becoming the clan master was what everyone wanted. But who was Ling Xiao? It was all because he had a good father and a good mother. He had only barely stepped into the soul sea realm after eating little spirit pills like jelly beans. Wait a minute. Why was Ling Zhao's aura a little blurry and surging? Did he step into the profound clarity realm? No wonder the firmament peak was shrouded in thunderclouds yesterday. Even so, how could he possibly be a match for Ling Rue? All right, since everyone is here, I won't waste any more time. Father, let's begin. Ling Xiao grinned. His gaze swept across the geniuses of the various factions standing below the hall. His eyes were filled with arrogance and haughtiness. Don't tell me this group of rotten fish and shrimps are also here for the position of successor? Also, Ling Tian's eyes are a little interesting. This kid really wants to use me as a stepping stone. Are you kidding me? I didn't transmigrate here to be stepped on. This is my country, my world, my golden age. Everyone, now that my son Ling Xiao is almost an adult, I think the position of successor can be decided. Ling Tianlin looked at everyone with a smile. Others might not know, but he knew all of Ling Zhao's secrets. Although his son was a little arrogant, there were not many people in the younger generation of the Shangzhou continent who could be a match for him. After all, the real body of the sky demon was a taboo. It was not because of his appearance, but because he was too powerful. Moreover, Ling Xiao was indeed in the Soul Sea realm half a month ago. However, when he returned this time, he was already half a step into the Pong realm. That was why Ling Tianlin was so confident. Haha, family leader, it seems that you have a candidate in mind? The Grand Elder was called Ling Shan. He was an emperor god expert and one of the 3 emperors of the Ling family. Although there was a smile on his face, the way he looked at Ling Xiao revealed a hint of coldness. Do you think you can hide your filthy and weak temperament by hiding your aura? That's right. My son Ling Xiao is talented and is the best candidate for the position of successor. I think all of you have no objections, right? Ha ha. Family leader, I don't mean to disrespect you, but are you serious about Ling Zhao's talent? Ling Tian was about to speak when Ling Rue, the grandson of the Grand Elder, suddenly sneered and walked to Ling Zhao's side. Ling Xiao raised his eyelids. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach Ling Tian a lesson. He did not expect that there would be someone who did not know what was good for him and coveted the position of successor of the Ling people. Oh, it's Brother Ling Rue. Ling Xiao smiled and nodded. So, Brother thinks that you are more suitable for the position than me? Haha. Ling Xiao, don't you have any idea how strong you are? If not for the fact that you are the young master of the Ling family, do you think you are qualified to stand here? Ling Rue looked at Ling Xiao with disdain. His grandfather was also an emperor god and was at the same level as Ling Tian. This was also why he dared to be so arrogant. Before he came, Ling Shan had already told him that he did not need to be afraid of anyone in the hall today. He had already informed the other 7 elders that he would make him the successor today. Oh, is that what you all think too? Ling Zhao's playful gaze swept across the other clan brothers and sisters standing in the hall. These people indeed represented the strongest of the younger generation of the Ling people. But Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Finally, he looked at Ling Tian. For some reason, Ling Tian felt a little nervous. Ling Xiao, the successor's position should be taken by the capable. Other than your status being higher than ours, what right do you have to sit in that position? Then, another prodigy of the Ling people sneered. The Ling people had a rule that no one from the same bloodline was allowed to interfere in the younger generation's competition. Moreover, if someone could sit in the position of successor and gain the approval of the elders of the 9 bloodlines, even the clan leader would not be able to remove him as long as he was alive. If that was the case, why would they be afraid of Ling Xiao? Well said. Only the capable can sit in the position. So, brothers, do you all want to compete with me? Ling Xiao smiled and looked at Ling Shan. Great elder, does it mean that the strongest person today will be the successor of the Ling people? Of course. The reason why the Ling people have not declined for thousands of years is because every successor of the clan leader is the strongest. It has nothing to do with the direct bloodline. Ling Shan nodded calmly. However, he did not know if it was an illusion, but looking at the smile on Ling Zhao's face, he felt a little uncomfortable. What kind of evil tricks is this kid up to? You pieces of trash dare to covet the successor's position? Haha, brother Ling Rue, I'm not targeting you. What I mean is that everyone here is trash. The entire hall fell into a dead silence. Even Ling Tian looked at Ling Xiao in shock. He did not know what to say. Chapter 100. Are all the trash here even worthy of it? Ling Xiao's words were very direct, very arrogant, and very infuriating. Everyone knew that the eldest young master of the Ling people, Ling Xiao, had a domineering personality and did not respect anyone. But it was one thing for him to show off in front of outsiders. After all, everyone in the Shengzhou was wary of the Ling people. But now, in front of the 8 elders, who did Ling Xiao think he was? He dared to speak arrogantly and look down on all the prodigies of the Ling people. Humph, you are indeed extremely arrogant and ignorant. Ling Xiao, if you were not the young master of the Ling people, you would have been beaten to death long ago, right? Ling Rue sneered, killing intent in his eyes. In terms of age, he was 10 years older than Ling Xiao and should be the eldest young master of the Ling people. But in the entire Xingzhou, when the eldest young master of the Ling people was mentioned, everyone thought of Ling Xiao. This had made Ling Rue angry for a long time. Elder brother, you are right. There are many people in the Xingzhou who want to kill me, but usually, those who have such thoughts are all dead. Ling Xiao smiled coldly. Although his tone was calm, the arrogance in his words had reached an unbearable level. Ling Xiao, if you have the guts, fight me now. Today, I will let you know that you are nothing except for the identity of the young master of the Ling people. Ling Rue's face was ferocious, and his entire body was filled with a violent aura. In the Shengzhou eastern border, other than the exceptional prodigies of the few supreme orthodoxies, Ling Rue was also one of the top prodigies of the young prodigies. He did not care about a mere Ling Xiao at all. He just didn't expect Ling Xiao to still be so pretentious at this point in time. What did a soul see ant have to whine in front of him? Grand Elder, you won't be angry if I beat him to death, right? You really don't know what's good for you. Although Ling Xiao's words were directed at Ling Shan, his gaze was on Ling Rue. You grandson, these words are a little ambiguous. Grandfather, Ling Rue's face had already turned red. Especially now that Ling Xiao was still pretending to be calm, it made people want to immediately step on him and kick him a few times. Father, why don't you let me? By the side, Ling Tian saw that the time was right and was about to step forward to ask for a battle. However, he heard Ling Shan suddenly say, since Lord Ling Xiao is so confident, let the young noble experience our lineage's divine heavenly silkworm seal. Yes, Grandpa. Ling Rue grinned and looked at Ling Xiao impatiently. Ling Xiao, you boast shamelessly and arrogantly. Now, who in the Shengzhou doesn't know of your infamy? The face of the Ling people is almost completely lost because of you. Today, I will let you know that you are not worthy of being called the young noble of the Ling people. Ha! I really don't know where you people get the time to talk about reputation. Senior brother, do you cultivate for reputation? You want to be the successor. Is it also for reputation? How about this? Let's stop fighting. From today onwards, we will call you the invincible, domineering, handsome, and peerless monster of the Xingzhou. How about that? Ling Xiao grinned, not putting Ling Rue in his eyes at all. You have a sharp tongue. Ling Xiao, are you afraid? Ling Rue took a deep breath and tried to suppress the anger in his heart. However, when he saw Ling Xiao acting so pretentiously, he couldn't suppress his anger. If it weren't for the fact that Ling Tian was right in front of him, Ling Rue would have already attacked. Sigh, in this world, there are always people who like to take other people's kindness for ill intent. After Ling Xiao finished speaking, he looked at Ling Tian meaningfully. Ling Tian's heart trembled. What the F***ck are you looking at me for? Don't tell me you dug out my Dan Ocean out of kindness? Kindness? How can you be kind? If the Ling people fall into your hands, I'm afraid that sooner or later they will be wiped out. Senior brother Ling Rue, you have lived for so long, but you still don't understand how much reputation is worth in this world. If you want to be respected, you have to be stronger than others. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and stood in the middle of the hall with his hands behind his back, looking like he was passing judgment on everything. Do you think that the Ling people have been able to stand for thousands of years because we Ling people are kind, pure, and simple? In this world of great battles, everyone wants to become an immortal and attain the Tao, regardless of holy or evil reputation. As long as you stand at the peak of martial arts, the world will only bow down to you. Do you really think that immortals who have ascended are not murderous demons? Boom! The entire holy hall of the Ling people instantly fell into a dead silence. All the elders looked at the calm young man. Their eyes were filled with shock and nothing else. Immortals are murderous demons? What kind of absurd Tao theory was this? If this theory were to spread, the Ling people would definitely be at the center of the storm. They might even be punished by the Holy Church. You shut up, Wraither. Quick, show what you've got. Ling Shan clenched his teeth tightly, his expression full of fear. Ling Zhao's words were not false. In a world of cultivation, martial arts reigned supreme. Whoever was strong would be revered by others and obtain the title of supremacy. And those who stood at the peak of the world all had thousands of skeletons in their hands. However, these words were not something that anyone could say, especially a 16 or 17-year-old boy. His words and actions could be said to be demonic. Ling Xiao. Hearing the grand elder's words, Ling Rui's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. The aura around his body was no longer suppressed and suddenly surged out. Golden light shone brightly, and Tao sounds resounded. At this moment, the entire holy hall of the Ling people was shrouded in divine light. He was at the peak of the Xianxing stage and showed signs of stepping into the Pong stage. As expected of the Grand Elder's grandson, no one in the entire Shengzhou can compare to him with such talent, right? I think it won't be long before Rui steps into the Pong stage and becomes a peerless figure. With such a descendant, the Ling people will definitely continue to be glorious in the future. The group of elders immediately nodded their heads in praise. Their eyes, when looking at Ling Rui, were full of gratification. Comparing the two, that Ling Xiao, Pucci, really had no redeeming qualities. Soul Sea Realm. What face did he have to contend for the position of the Holy Hall of the Ling people's descendant? Clan Brother Ling Rui, impressive. Clan Brother Ling Rui, our clan is proud. Clan Brother Ling Rui, kill him. The remaining prodigies in the hall started clapping and cheering. But Ling Tian glared at that golden light figure somewhat hatefully. Damn it, I have been planning for 7 years. To think that I actually let this Ling Rui finish showing off. But that's fine too. You stepped on Ling Xiao. In a while, I'll cut you down with a sword. The position of descendant, supreme prestige, is still mine. Ling Xiao, make your move. I'll let you have 3 moves. It's also not considered bullying you. Ling Rui gave a cold laugh. His palms suddenly clenched. The golden light outside his body instantly surged to the sky, faintly turning into a divine shadow outside his body. Great Tao runes descended from the sky, coiling around Ling Rui's body. At this time, all of the Ling people's clansmen looked in the direction of the Holy Hall rather surprisedly. Over there, the golden light was like mist. Immortal traces floated, just like a scene of divine protection. Heaven is protecting our Ling people. Is a prodigy emerging? Heaven is protecting the Ling people. 3 moves? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled bitterly. This Ling Rui did not have any other abilities. His ability to posture was on par with him. But when the Son of Heaven's mandate made a pact of 3 moves, he would often be able to finish off his opponent in 1 move. You, a stinky salted fish without any bit of destiny, forcefully posturing. Wasn't this seeking death? All right, since Clan Brother is so confident, then let's begin. Ling Xiao looked at the arrogant Ling Rui, whose eyes were filled with pride, and suddenly grinned. Buzz! He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Ling Rui. Demonic light surged around his body. He directly raised his leg and kicked the latter's face. Chapter 101. Boom! Torrential sky demon Qi covered heaven and earth at this moment. And Ling Rui, who was still calm and collected a second ago, was directly sent flying and disappeared outside the main hall. The entire sacred hall fell completely into a dead silence. Everyone looked at the figure that rose into the sky and landed on the ground like a monkey in the sky, and they all swallowed hard. Even Ling Shan was not completely clear at this time. How did the seemingly awe-inspiring Ling Rui get kicked more than 800 miles by Ling Xiao? It should be known that the heavenly silkworm divine seal of their lineage was not only an offensive immortal technique, but also a terrifying tempering of the physical body. Ling Rui was now an expert with half a foot in the Pong stage, while Ling Xiao was only at the Soul Sea stage. Of course, at this time, no one believed that Ling Xiao could directly step into the Pong stage from the early stage of the Soul Sea stage in half a month. This was unrealistic, absurd, and absurd. Even in the entire history of the Xingzhou, no one could cross two major realms in half a month. The silence lasted for a long time, until suddenly there was a sound of rushing wind outside the hall. Ling Rui's figure reappeared in the main hall, but compared to his previous high-spirited appearance, his current appearance was more or less in a sorry state. On his incomparably handsome face, a footprint was particularly obvious. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his nose and mouth, and his whole body was covered in dust. The aura on his body did not change at all. In other words, although Ling Xiao's kick made him look very miserable, it did not really hurt him. Ling Rui had never suffered such humiliation. His whole body flickered with golden light, and a golden seal gradually condensed above his head, mysterious and unfathomable, like a great Tao decree. How dare you sneak attack me? Yes, just now Brother Ling Rui was not prepared at all. This Ling Xiao is indeed treacherous. That's right, he only knows how to play such despicable tricks. Brother Ling Rui, teach him a good lesson. The group of Ling people was filled with righteous indignation as they hurled insults at Ling Xiao. Ling people were more or less afraid of Ling Xiao's identity, so they had always stayed as far away from him as possible. But today, the Grand Elder had the intention to discipline this arrogant young master of the direct bloodline, so they had the confidence to do so. With the 8 branches working together, how could they be afraid of Ling Tianlin and his son? Clan Brother Ling Rui, you were the one who said that you would give me 3 moves. This is only 1 move. So I forget it. Since I have already used 1 move, I will give you a chance. You should also use 1 move. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed, looking sad and regretful. Ling Xiao, you asked for it. At this moment, how could Ling Rui still care about the agreement of 3 moves? He only wanted to use the fastest time to trample Ling Xiao under his feet. The golden light around his body shone brightly once more. Even the golden seal above his head was emitting a blinding radiance. An invisible force surged and spread. It was like the sun, illuminating the heavens. Amazing! Clan Brother Ling Rui's heavenly silkworm divine seal is probably something that ordinary people in the Powong realm can't withstand, right? This time, Ling Xiao will be crushed to pieces. However, just as Ling Rui's aura was surging and he was trying to condense the heavenly silkworm divine seal, Ling Xiao moved again. He actually appeared in front of Ling Rui in a flash, then raised his foot and kicked the latter's face. Pucci, Ling Rui's figure, along with the golden seal, flew out of the main hall in an instant. They drew a beautiful arc in the sky, and countless golden rays fell down. At this moment, the entire holy realm of the Ling people was in an uproar. Everyone looked at the golden light falling from the sky. It was as if they were bathing under the protection of an immortal king, and their faces were full of enjoyment. A miracle! Look, a miracle has appeared again. Ling Xiao, I'm going to kill you. This time, Ling Rui could no longer suppress the murderous intent in his heart. With an unparalleled momentum, he rose from the ground and charged toward the holy palace. This bastard, he actually sneaked up on him again. Clan brother Ling Rue, what's wrong? Why are you so angry? Ling Xiao looked at Ling Rue's red face in surprise. It was not because he was angry, but because he was kicked. Ling Xiao, you're shameless. Ling Rue spat out a mouthful of blood, especially when he saw Ling Xiao's harmless appearance. He clenched his fists so tightly that they were about to pierce into his flesh. I said to let clan brother make a move, but I didn't say that I wouldn't fight back. If you don't fight back when others hit you, wouldn't that be stupid? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, and waves of angry curses came from the hall. Shameless. I've never seen such a shameless person. Despicable. How can our Ling people have such a despicable young master? As expected, Ling Xiao's reputation in the Shengzhou continent has been ruined. At the top of the hall, Ling Tian looked at Ling Xiao meaningfully, and the corners of his mouth gradually curved into a playful smile. He raised his head and glanced at Ling Xiao, only to see that the great clan elder's face had turned green, but he could not find any fault with Ling Xiao's words. He was indeed shameless, but he was not wrong. In a battle between experts, every minute and second could turn the tide of the battle. No one would give you time to prepare. It seemed that Ling Rue and the others were indeed too young. In a battle of life and death, how could the enemy be at ease and wait for death? Ling Xiao, if you have the ability, fight me fair and square. Don't use such despicable means. Ling Rue's eyes flashed with monstrous hatred. He originally wanted to teach this young master of the main branch a lesson, but he did not expect to be played again and again. At this moment, he felt his face hurt. It was the kind of pain that was really painful. Despicable? Clan brother, if I get serious, I'm afraid your small body won't be able to withstand it. Ling Xiao shook his head, as if he was unwilling. Bullshit, if you have the guts, be a man. Ling Rue roared angrily, no longer having the demeanor from before. Fine. Today, I'll let you see what a true demon-level genius is. The few of you. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the people below the hall, his eyes cold. Instantly, the geniuses' bodies tensed up, as if they were facing a great enemy. Continue clapping, continue shouting. Damn you! Hearing this, everyone's faces turned sinister. If not for the fact that Ling Rue was challenging Ling Xiao, they would have rushed up and trampled this arrogant and ignorant bastard to death. Ling Xiao, stop trying to win a battle of words. Let me see how capable you really are. Ling Rue took a deep breath. He did not know how many times he had forced himself to calm down. Although it was taboo to be distracted during a battle, it was obvious that when facing a scoundrel like Ling Xiao, very few people could really calm down. In that case, as you wish. Ling Xiao nodded with a smile. He looked at Ling Tian with a deep gaze, and a green light suddenly lit up around his body. At first, the green light was dim and did not attract much attention. Then, a cold wind blew, causing everyone in the hall to feel a chill. After that, an indescribably terrifying sharpness swept out in all directions. In a short time, it turned into a whirlwind, completely enveloping Ling Xiao's body. This wave, this is. Chapter 102. Brother Ling Rue, you better prepare to die. Ling Xiao's voice was filled with endless majesty. It was as if he was a deity who ruled the world and announced the death of living beings. He raised his hand gently and closed his fingers. Green light flowed, and an invisible sword appeared in the air. The sword light was dazzling and carried a hint of coldness. Murderous intent surged forth, causing one to shudder. This is the power of Dao laws. How is this possible? Ling Shan's face turned pale as he exclaimed. At this moment, Ling Xiao's hand suddenly slashed down, and the space instantly collapsed. A sword shadow that was hundreds of meters long fell from the sky, suppressing everything within thousands of miles. Damn it! So cruel. Plop! Ling Rue's figure directly knelt on the ground under the majestic sword power. The spiritual light around him had already been cut into pieces, and there was nothing but fear on his face. Grandpa, save me! A roar that contained a sobbing tone suddenly resounded throughout the entire hall. At this moment, Ling Rui did not doubt that once the sword fell, his youth and life would be completely sealed. The power of Tao laws. Ling Xiao actually comprehended the power of Tao laws. No wonder he did not really use his skills. It turned out that he had been saving face for him all this time. At this moment, Ling Rui really wanted to cry. He realized that he had really misunderstood Ling Xiao previously. It turned out that young master was actually so kind. If he had not provoked him time and time again, young master would not have been willing to use his sword on him, right? If I still have the chance, I will definitely be young master's most loyal little brother. Ling Rui closed his eyes and silently shed tears of regret. Buzz. The space fluctuated as if it was the end of the world. However, in the end, Ling Xiao's sword did not really fall. At this moment, Ling Shan stood in front of Ling Rui and looked at the Tao Law sword above his head with a complicated expression. His old eyes were filled with indescribable shock. A 17-year-old prodigy of Tao laws. This was the so-called invincible immortal appearance, right? How is this possible? How is this possible? In the crowd, Ling Tian clenched his fists tightly as he stared at the green sword shadow that was suffused with the truth of the great Tao. He roared madly in his heart. After enduring for 7 years and drawing his sword 100,000 times, he finally comprehended a trace of the sword Tao's Tao law. How could this Ling Xiao condense such a terrifying Tao law power in the blink of an eye? Compared to him, the trace of Tao law on his body was simply a joke? This was impossible. This was impossible. Ling Tian wanted to cry, but had no tears. His entire being was enveloped by a deep sense of defeat. Young master, should you keep your sword? Ling Shan laughed bitterly and looked up at Ling Tianlin. With such a successor in our clan, why should we worry about our prosperity? These words made people feel as if they could see the old face of the Grand Elder. Obviously, under the intimidation of Ling Xiao, he no longer had the ambition to compete. Ling Rui was very strong. Even in the eastern region, he was ranked at the top. But compared to Ling Xiao, it wasn't that Ling Shan looked down on his grandson. If this sword really landed, Ling Rui wouldn't even know how he died. The power of the Tao law was illusory, but it was the source of the great Tao. All cultivators focused on the Tao, but in their lives, there were only a few who could truly comprehend this kind of power. There were even many divine king experts who could carry the power of heaven and earth with their every move. However, that kind of power was only caused by one's cultivation and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was a kind of power that was close to the Tao law, but not the Tao law. Thank you, young master, for not killing me. Ling Rui stood up shakily from the ground. His clothes were already drenched in sweat. Brother Ling Rui. Many of the Ling clan Sky Prides looked at Ling Rui, who was bowing down in submission, with an indescribable emotion in their eyes. It was as if they were regretful and helpless. In short, it was very sad. What are you waiting for? Clap. However, Ling Rui frowned and was the first to clap and shout at Ling Xiao. Lord Ling Xiao's power is unparalleled, as expected of the light of the Ling people. Lord Ling Xiao's power is unparalleled in the world. Throughout the ages, with such a successor, the Ling people will definitely reach the peak of the Shenzhou continent. The atmosphere was in place. The originally silent main hall instantly became lively. Everyone looked at the handsome young man in black in front of them with a fanatical look on their faces. In this chaotic world, only the strong would leave their name. To be arrogant, one needed the right to do so. At this moment, around Ling Xiao, multicolored light filled the air and the Tao Law bloomed. The appearance of a generation of experts was clearly visible. Arrogant to the extreme, shameless to the extreme. Young master was clearly chivalrous and courageous. His courage was outstanding, and he was as bright as the morning sun. His young aura was like that of an immortal, and he was connected by blood and flesh. Claps, cheers, and praises entered his ears. Ling Xiao calmly looked at the people in the hall, and finally, his gaze landed on Ling Tian. Brother Tion's face is a bit ugly. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? No, I'm just happy for brother. Ling Tian gritted his teeth, but in the end, he did not dare to provoke him. After all, the Tao law of Ling Zhao's sword Tao could not lie. The current him was far from being Ling Zhao's opponent. With the latter's ruthlessness, if he dared to show the slightest bit of hostility, the outcome would probably be the only thing he could do now was to endure for a while and wait for his Tao law to reach perfection. Humph. Ling Xiao, I'll let you live for a few more days. What did Ling Tian learn after 7 years of enduring? Of course, enduring. Is that so? I thought that Brother Tian also wanted to try drawing his sword. Ling Xiao smiled coldly, and for some reason, Ling Tian felt a chill in his heart. Elders, is there anyone else who is against Xiao, becoming the successor of the Ling people? Ling Tian looked at Ling Xiao with gratification, although he was also very puzzled. How did Ling Xiao comprehend the Tao law of the sword Tao? Compared to the other elders, he still had some guesses in his heart. The true body of the sky demon. It was said that this forbidden physique had many mysteries that mortals could not imagine. It was likely that Ling Zhao's sudden comprehension of the Tao law had something to do with this sky demon. Haha, Lord Ling Xiao is handsome and talented. It is a blessing for our clan to have him as the successor of the Ling people. I suggest that we take advantage of the engagement between the young master and the goddess of the Tao Palace tomorrow and hold a feast for 7 days to congratulate the young master. That's right. Lord Ling Xiao has a gentle personality, and he is also admired by the goddess of the Tao Palace. This matter should be celebrated. Let's not talk about it anymore. We have to go pick out a gift for the young master now. Everyone, please excuse us. The elders who were trying their best to stop Ling Xiao from becoming the successor were now acting as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and they were trying their best to flatter him. If nothing went wrong, Ling Xiao would be the next leader of the clan. Moreover, the strength he displayed today was indeed worthy of the title of successor of the ancient clan. No wonder the young master's reputation has been growing these few years. He is indeed a genius. As for the slander, the world was jealous, especially when there was no need to take responsibility for the scolding. Since the elders have no objections, Xiao Ling Tianlin smiled faintly. The words and actions of the elders in front of him were indeed what Ling Xiao had said in the beginning. As long as one stood at the top, who would care if he was a demon or an immortal? Strength was justice. Father. Ling Xiao bowed respectfully to Ling Tianlin. This token is the imperial order of the leader of the Ling people. Seeing this token is like seeing the leader of the clan. Today, I will pass it to you. This starry emperor's robe is the inherited Taoist artifact of the Ling people. It symbolizes the dignity of our clan. I will give it to you as well. Ling Tianlin waved his hand. 2 rays of light fell from the sky and landed in Ling Zhao's hands. Wonderful. The starry emperor's robe sounded like a pretentious artifact. Ling Xiao did not care whether it was inherited or not. It was over. Chapter 103. Clan Leaders Order. Ling Xiao didn't even look at it and threw it into his chinquin bag. Now that the Ling people were in the hands of the father and son, who would dare to refuse? However, the emperor's astral robe was a Tao artifact. The demon dragon divine armor that Ling Xiao had exchanged from the system had been destroyed by the ancient Almighty in the ruins. Although Ling Zhao's physical body was terrifying and ordinary people of the same generation as him couldn't really hurt him, the lightning Tao law and the sky demon true body were both supreme abilities to temper one's physique. But who would complain about having too many life-saving trump cards? The Emperor's astral robe was a high-grade Tao artifact and was considered a top spirit treasure in the Shenzhou. Of course, the most important thing was that this Emperor's robe was really cool. Ling Zhao's gaze swept across the white robe in front of him. It seemed to contain the starry sky, shining brightly. With this thing on me, coupled with my peerless beauty, which woman in the world wouldn't be tempted? I don't know if all decent people are bootlickers, but I'm a bootlicker. Very perverted? No, very perverted. Very perverted. All right, shower. Tomorrow is the day of your engagement with Qingyan. Rest early and come to the sacred hall early to welcome the guests. Ling Tianlin nodded with a faint smile and dismissed the crowd. He then said to Ling Xiao, "Yes, father." Ling Xiao bowed and left. A group of Ling people immediately surrounded the hall. Young master is mighty. I've long disliked Ling Rue. Today, young master taught him a lesson. I hope he can realize his mistake and mend his ways. Young master, I wonder if you have time later. I have a few questions about cultivation that I want to ask you. Young master, this is such a joyous occasion. Why don't we go to Hantan City and have fun? Yes, I know a girl in a courtyard. Her skills are quite good. She knows how to use ice and fire. She knows how to hum and hum. It's really worrying. I'm a little tired today. Besides, tomorrow's engagement can't be delayed. Next time. Ling Xiao smiled gently. Where was the ferocious scoundrel from before? He was simply the most amiable young master in the world. That's right. Tomorrow is the day of the engagement between the young master and the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace. How could I have forgotten about that? The goddess of the Holy Ji Palace, the dream of many geniuses in the Shengzhou continent. Sai, what goddess? She still can't escape from our young master's grasp. That's true. With our young master's heroic appearance, even if I were a man, my heart would also be moved, hearing their flattery. Ling Xiao shook his head with a smile and waved goodbye to them before he flew towards the firmament peak. The life of a villain is truly dull and tedious. At the same time, the entire eastern border of the Shengzhou continent suddenly became lively. Numerous skyscrapers and gigantic ships spanning thousands of miles sailed across the sky, converging in the direction of the sunset god mountain. Ling people's young master and the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace. These two identities together were enough to make many people wary. Even the forces that were usually hostile to the Ling people brought congratulatory gifts this time, wanting to find out what was going on in Hantan City. Ling Zhao's name was boundless for a while. It was as if he was the ruler of the world. On the firmament peak, Ling Xiao looked at Nine Nether, whose aura was gradually becoming stronger, and a smile appeared on his face. He could feel that this expert of the Dark Phoenix clan had reached the peak of the Divine Lord realm. Clearly, if she reconstructed her physical body, her cultivation would definitely reach the Divine King realm. A Divine King expert. Ling people had a terrifying foundation, but there were only 10 Divine Kings. Once Nine Nether completely recovered, it would be tantamount to having another terrifying trump card by his side. Mi Yong and Layered Shadow were very powerful, but they were demons and couldn't show themselves easily. Otherwise, if they attracted the attention of others, Ling Xiao would face endless trouble. But Nine Nether was different. Although she had a blood feud with the sacred sect, as long as she was careful, no one should be able to recognize her identity. This clan had disappeared for almost 100 years. Perhaps even the experts of the sacred sect wouldn't believe that there was a fish that escaped the net like Nine Nether. Crack! Crack! Just as Ling Xiao was muttering to himself, a strange cracking sound suddenly came from his sea of consciousness. Ling Zhao's mind moved, and he instantly appeared in the space of the 8 Desolation glazed pagoda. At this moment, Mi Yong and Layered Shadow were surrounding the black spiritual beast egg, looking at the crack that was gradually opening on the egg with anticipation. Is it finally coming out? Ling Xiao grinned and walked to the two of them. Greetings, Lord. Mi Yong and Layered Shadow hurriedly bowed with a look of joy on their faces. Lord, the demonic beast is coming out. Ling Zhao's gaze landed on the beast egg, and he could see a visible demonic aura seeping out from it. This demonic aura could be a demonic beast? Crack, crack, crack. The cracks on the beast egg became more and more concentrated until a small beast's head poked out. Only then did Ling Xiao and the other two reveal a smile on their faces. Dragon. That's right, it was a dragon head that peeked out from the beast egg. There was no reversal. There was no surprise. What did it mean to start with a dog that relied on looting equipment? That didn't exist. Yes, it was what you imagined, a dragon. Ferocious blood-red eyes, hideous scales, and 2 straight dragon horns. However, it was a little different from Ling Xiao's impression of the Dragon Clan. The little dragon in front of him was filled with demonic aura, and even its scales were pitch black. Demonic dragon, Mi Yong exclaimed, scaring the little dragon into retracting its head back into the shell. You scared it. Ling Xiao rolled his eyes at Mi Yong and reached out to break the eggshell. Come to me. Seeing Ling Xiao, the little demonic dragon instantly let out a soft roar and jumped into his arms, rubbing against him affectionately. As expected of a product of the system, it was born to be absolutely loyal to its host without needing to acknowledge its master. Ling Xiao grinned and looked down at the demonic dragon that was as docile as a kitten in his arms. There was an inexplicable meaning in the depths of his eyes. It seemed that his identity as the demonic sect's young master was inescapable. Whether it was Mi Yong, Layered Shadow, or this demonic dragon, they were all related to demons. Furthermore, he was the inheritor of the sky demon's true body, not to mention the primordial demonic blade in his sea of consciousness. He was definitely the villain of the demonic sect. However, the world only knew that demons were cruel and bloodthirsty. What they didn't know was that the so-called demons were mostly deliberately fabricated by those who stood at the top. They wanted to consolidate their rule, so they would name all opponents with the word demon. Killing them in this way would not attract criticism. Since I was reborn as a demon, in this life, I will clear the name of a demon. A trace of coldness flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. The little demonic dragon in his arms was so frightened that it trembled and looked up at him in confusion. However, in the next second, Ling Xiao could not help but laugh. I'll clear the name of a demon. I'm a villain. Why do I have to make an oath like the child of destiny? Master, the primordial demonic dragon has not appeared for a long time. Where did you get this cub? Mion looked at Ling Xiao curiously. Although the primordial demonic dragon's bloodline could not be compared to the primordial ancestral dragon, it was also a peerless, ferocious beast that was born at the beginning of the primordial age. Although there were many dragons in the current world, their bloodline was no longer pure. And this demonic dragon's existence was almost equivalent to the peak of the dragon bloodline. Even he felt a sense of oppression from the bottom of his heart when he looked at the demonic dragon. It was not hard to imagine that once this demonic dragon grew up, it would definitely be a great disaster. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and raised his hand to gently stroke the demonic dragon in his arms. Since you're following me, I'll give you a nice name. How about Wawa? Chapter 104. Folded Shadow couldn't help but cover his mouth and chuckle. Flowy? Looks like the Lord's brain isn't that good after all. But when he saw Ling Xiao's slightly gloomy face, Folded Shadow coughed twice and nodded seriously. The name Flowy really suits the temperament of the ancient demon dragon. Roar. Demon Dragon Flowy's eyes flashed with excitement. He probably never dreamed that in the near future, his reputation would be ruined because of this name. Even those women who were attracted to him, as long as they knew his name, they would eventually become sisters with him. Demon Dragon Flowy, unparalleled. Here, little fellow, you can follow me from now on. Ling Xiao gently caressed Flowy in his arms and took out a bag of pills and handed it to Mi Yong and Folded Shadow. Don't delay your cultivation. One day, when your cultivation is high enough, it will be time to leave the tower. He would only eat spirit pills when he was bored. After all, with the system, it was much easier to cultivate than fusing pills. Yes, Lord. Mi Yong and Folded Shadow looked at each other, their eyes flashing with excitement and anticipation. After 3,000 years of suppression, they were already tired of the eternal darkness in the tower. Who said that demons don't yearn for the light? Can you lend me this little earthworm to play with for 2 days? Just as Ling Xiao was about to turn around and leave, Feng Ling's figure suddenly appeared in the darkness, scaring him so much that his feet trembled. Little ancestor, can you not appear out of nowhere like this every time? Ling Xiao glared at Feng Ling, but the latter ignored him and directly appeared in front of him and grabbed Flowy's neck. What a cute little thing. Let me play with it for 2 days. Feng Ling's mouth curved into a naughty smile. Her two small canine teeth looked a little fierce. You can play with it just because it's cute? Then let me play with it for 2 days too? Ling Xiao snorted coldly in his heart. But on the surface, he didn't dare to offend this great demon from the 9th floor. Especially after witnessing the fear of the stacked shadows that day. Ling Xiao was even more convinced that Feng Ling's harmless appearance was mostly an act. Although he didn't know what this girl was plotting, there was no harm in being careful. After all, the 8 Desolation Glazed Pagoda was a supreme treasure with 9 demons sealed within it. It was of great use to Ling Xiao. Otherwise, with his personality, he really wouldn't dare to casually bring this unknown danger by his side. They're all demons. Perhaps 9 Nether will know the origin of this ancient pagoda. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment. In the end, he just patted Huahua's little head and said with a smile, "Huahua, play with Sister Feng Ling then." Woo! A hint of reluctance flashed across Floey's eyes, but her body naturally plunged into Feng Ling's embrace. A trace of tears even flowed from the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Ling Xiao was stunned. F***CK. This little thing had just been born, and it was already so lustful. Sure enough, dragons were lustful regardless of bloodline. This little thing is too cute. It's just that its aura is a little weak. I'll take it to temper it. After saying that, Feng Ling's figure disappeared. Ancestor, when you're done, remember to return it to me. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and turned to walk out of the glazed pagoda. Having Feng Ling's tempering might not be a bad thing for Floey. After all, it was cultivation. Babies and whatnot were naturally meant to die for their masters at critical moments. The pet that Ling Xiao exchanged for with 10,000 villain points was not just for fun. When necessary, it needed to sacrifice its life. Was being cute useful? Weren't cute things used to be played with? He just didn't know when he would be able to push down that overbearing little lowly. Delicate and weak, fair skin and big eyes. Most importantly, it smelled good. Ling Xiao returned to the Cloud Peak and opened the system. In just a few days, his villain points had already reached 6,000. Obviously, it was the contribution of the Sea family and Ling Rue. System, add a point to the ancient soul assimilation technique. When Ling Xiao obtained this forbidden technique, he knew that the ancient soul assimilation technique was the best soul technique in the world. Nowadays, there were not many cultivators who specialized in soul techniques in the world, so ordinary people did not know much about soul techniques. At most, they knew that as their cultivation level increased, their soul techniques would become more powerful. When fighting with others, their soul techniques could suppress their cultivation level. However, from the introduction of the ancient soul assimilation technique, Ling Xiao knew that this ancient technique was called a forbidden technique not only because it could assimilate people's soul techniques, but also because it could condense attacks and kill people silently. His soul techniques were his biggest reliance. It was comparable to a divine king's weapon. Buzz. After spending 6,000 villain points, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly emitted a ray of divine light. The space in front of him instantly shattered as if it was cut by a sharp sword. The divine power was vast and mighty. Great desolate heaven imprisoning seal. The ancient soul technique recorded in the ancient soul assimilation technique could kill immortals and suppress demons. However, damn, why does this name sound so familiar? If Ling Xiao remembered correctly, wasn't this the technique that the symbol ancestor used to dominate the world? However, the difference was that the palm print in front of him was not condensed by spiritual power, but by soul techniques. The great desolate heaven imprisoning seal could suppress mountains and rivers. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. With his current soul techniques, he was comparable to a divine king. In other words, even a divine lord would not be able to withstand his attack. System. Owner. Ling Xiao. Identity. Young master of the universal demon sect, successor of the ancient Ling people. Divine constitution. Sky demon real body, second transference, forbidden constitution. Cultivation level, early stage of palm. Spiritual treasures. Primordial demon saber, great unknown. 8 desolate glazed demon, subduing pagoda, divine treasure, emperor's robe, high-grade Tao artifact. Cultivation skills, universal demon art, sky demon sutra, sky demon real body, talent, eye of nirvana, talent, ancient soul assimilation technique, forbidden technique, great desolate heaven imprisoning seal, soul technique. Spiritual beast, primordial demon dragon, void spirit realm. Luck points, 2,000. Villain points, 0. Unknowingly, Ling Zhao's luck points had reached 2,000. Although the luck points did not belong to him, he was not protected by the heavenly Tao. But now he was no longer bound by the heavenly Tao to kill whoever he wanted. Of course, the reason why Ling Zhao had become stronger was because he had plundered the luck of the Chosen One. Moreover, he would obtain additional rewards by draining the luck of the Chosen One before killing them. Ling Zhao had obtained many treasures that the Shengzhou did not have after killing the Chosen One. Therefore, I don't know when the next Chosen One will appear. At this moment, Ling Zhao had a vague premonition that perhaps tomorrow someone would come knocking on his door to extort money from him. Ethereal Tao Palace, Divine Lady Nian Qingyuan. In the Shengzhou, this name was synonymous with immortal beauty and strength. Such a peerless genius must have some luck on her, right? He just didn't know if there were other children of destiny standing behind her. He was looking forward to it. Ling Zhao grinned, suddenly opened the system store, turned to the elixir column, and browsed silently. Raw rice wasn't tasty at all. If he wanted to eat, of course, he wanted to eat cooked rice. Beep, the host's thoughts are in line with the villain's style, making the system feel extremely ashamed, making an exception and gifting 2,000 villain points. Damn it, that works? Also, you're a system. Why are you ashamed? Chapter 105. The sun rose, and divine light shone everywhere. The entire sacred realm of the Ling people suddenly became lively. Countless powerful auras descended from the sky and landed in front of the central sacred palace. Giant ships and birds anchored in the sky above Cold Sky City, preparing to enter the sacred realm of the Ling people. The entire ancient city instantly fell into a state of jubilation. Red brocades fluttered on both sides of the streets, and countless cultivators ran along the streets in high spirits to announce that Lord Ling Zhao was engaged. Lord Ling Zhao was engaged. The successor of the Ling people was engaged. The entire world was celebrating nothing more than this. In just a few days, Ling Zhao's name had spread throughout the Shengzhou. The successor disciple of the Universal Demon Sect's Grand Elder was killed in front of everyone. The Xi family, the leader of the 4 major families in Cold Sky City, was destroyed overnight. It was rumored that Lord Ling Zhao was responsible for all of this. Moreover, the Ling people suddenly announced yesterday that Ling Zhao would be their successor. Although the Ling people had always been united, who in the 9 bloodlines didn't want to be their leader. Ling Tianlin was strong, but he wasn't strong enough to rule the world. Therefore, for Ling Zhao to be able to sit firmly in the position of the successor, it was most likely due to his extremely powerful talent. Those geniuses who originally looked down on Ling Zhao behind his back had also come to Cold Sky City today, wanting to see the face of this young master. At the same time, they also wanted to know whether Ling Zhao's arrogance was just a facade or if he really had the strength. After all, the Myriad Sect martial art competition was about to begin, and it was the best opportunity to become a prodigy. Who didn't cultivate to become a supreme prodigy? Moreover, these were the proud saints of the various sects and ancient clans. They didn't want to be suppressed by anyone. Of course, some people came for Ling Zhao, while others came for Nian Qingyuan. Everyone knew that the goddess of the Tao Palace was as beautiful as a painting, and she was known as a peerless beauty in the Shengzhou. It was even said that a young master of an ancient clan once saw her from afar and died of longing. What kind of terrifying charm was this? Although they saw that she was facing the danger of dying suddenly, it did not hinder the enthusiasm of everyone who wanted to see her face. Have you heard? Goddess Nian doesn't really want to marry this descendant of the Ling people. Nonsense. What kind of status does the goddess have? What kind of beauty does she have? How could someone as arrogant as Ling Xiao be allowed to touch her? Shut up. Are you tired of living? This is the cold sky city. If the Ling people hear you, you will lose your life. What's there to be afraid of? Ling Xiao's name is known throughout the Shenzhou continent. I just don't understand. Is the Misty Palace Master's brain filled with shit? He actually took the initiative to propose marriage to Ling people. But he's really strong. Didn't you hear that Qin Feng, the true disciple of the myriad Dao demon sect, was killed by Ling Xiao in front of the Great Elder? TSK, do you believe that he has such strength? Since they were both core disciples, how much of a difference could there be in their cultivation? That Ling Xiao must have taken drugs or taken some treasure from the Ling people. That's true, but we should be careful. We're here to see the goddess. Don't lose your life because of this. Many young cultivators had gathered together and were discussing the recent rumors. In particular, the news that Ling Xiao killed Qin Feng had spread throughout the eastern border sects in the past few days. However, rumors were rumors after all. Coupled with Ling Xiao's status, few people really thought that his strength was enough to crush a first-stage Xianqin cultivator. Great Elder, where did Master go in such a hurry early in the morning? In the Heavenly Sword Immortal sect, Yi Qingchan held the ancient green tower sword and stood on the mountain peak practicing sword moves. Hearing this, Su Jibua, who was beside her, smiled indifferently. Today is the big day of the engagement of the Ling people's descendant, Lord Ling Xiao, and the goddess of the Misty Palace, Nian Qingyun. All the forces that are on good terms with the Ling people rushed to congratulate them. What? Yi Qingchan's delicate body trembled slightly. Even the sword intent on her body showed signs of dissipating. Young Master is getting engaged? From the beginning, Yi Qingchan knew that with Ling Xiao's status, it was impossible for him to only have one woman by his side. But when she heard this news, she still felt heartache. Fortunately, it was only an engagement. Great Elder, I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. When Master comes back, please tell him. Yi Qingchan put away the sword in her hand and walked toward a cave residence in the distant mountain. Young Master said that as long as my cultivation is strong enough, he will come to take me down the mountain. Good. Qingchan, go ahead. Su Jibwa nodded with a smile. His old eyes revealed a hint of deep meaning. Before leaving, the sect master had specifically instructed him to tell Yi Qingchan the truth if she asked. This way, she would naturally stop thinking about Ling Xiao and focus all her attention on the sword Dao. The sect master was indeed a genius. But if Su Jibwa knew what Yi Qingchan was thinking at this time, he would probably vomit blood and fall to the ground again. At the same time, in the Qingqiu of the northern border, Bai Jishi looked coldly at a young servant in green clothes in front of her. There seemed to be a touch of anger on her delicate little face. You mean Ling Xiao is getting engaged today? Yes, Ninth Princess. My cousin in the eastern border said that today is the engagement day of Ling Xiao and the goddess of the ethereal Taoist palace. Now the entire sacred realm of the Ling people is lively. Goddess of the Taoist palace? Vixen. Bai Jishi snorted coldly. But after saying that, she was stunned. What did Ling Xiao's engagement have to do with her? Why was she so angry? Could it be that she really fell in love with him? But humans and demons could not fall in love. This was an ancient rule. What should she do? At this moment, Bai Jishi had never been so confused. Danyuan's sacred ground. The moon of Xianyuan was in a red robe. She stood in front of the main hall and looked at the distant sky. Behind her, the girl named Ju lowered her eyes slightly and stood respectfully. Sacred Lord, are you not going to go in person? I swore that I would never step half a step in a Hantian city in this life. The moon of Xianyuan shook her head. There was a trace of sadness on her beautiful face. She also wanted to attend Ling Xiao's engagement ceremony. But when she dug up Ling Tian's elixir ocean alive, she risked universal condemnation and touched Ling Tian's bottom line. Although the engagement between the two was not broken, Their relationship was broken. It was not reasonable for her to go to Ling people. Sacred Lord, it's been so long. I think Emperor Ling, The moon of Xianyuan snorted coldly. The space shook, and it seemed like it was going to collapse. Sacred Lord, please calm down. Take the gift and send it to Ling people. At the same time, tell Xiao that I will help him find out about Bai Zhuro. Yes, in the central hall of the Ling people's sacred realm, Ling Tianlin sat on the main seat in a golden robe. Beside him stood 8 elders. On both sides of the hall, countless powerful grand cultivators sat cross-legged and looked at Ling Tianlin and the others in awe. The leaders of the sects had witnessed the power of the Ling people. Today, the Ling people were connected to the ethereal Tao Palace through marriage. Who in the eastern border of the Shengzhou continent could be their opponent? But the 9 branches of the Ling people were all here. Why hadn't the heir of the Ling people, Ling Xiao, appeared yet? Sure enough, the rumors were true. This Ling Xiao had no respect for his elders, did not know etiquette, and was arrogant and conceited. Even if the Ling people were to fall into his hands in the future, they would most likely die. My lord, Sacred Lord Dan Yuan sent someone to send a gift. Outside the hall, a disciple of the Ling people suddenly led a woman in black into the hall, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 106. Outsiders did not know much about what had happened back then. However, in the past few years, the Sacred Lord of Dan Yuan had stayed in the sect for a long time and had never visited the Ling people. This had given rise to many speculations. The most accepted one was that the moon of Xianyuan and Ling Tianlin's relationship was broken and they were no longer husband and wife. Of course, speculations were just speculations. Whether it was the Sacred Lord of Dan Yuan or the Ling people, they were supreme orthodoxies. Normally, no one would dare to provoke them. Emperor Ling, our Sacred Lord has specially prepared a gift for Lord Ling Xiao. Please give it to him. A Jew raised her head and looked at Ling Tianlin in the hall. She took out a white jade bottle from her bosom and bowed. Sister Jew, long time no see. However, just as Ling Tianlin was about to nod, a chuckle came from outside the hall. Soon after, everyone saw a white-clothed figure slowly walking over. His black hair was tied behind his head, and his eyebrows were sharp. His slender and long eyes that contained sharpness were like an eagle in the night. They were cold, arrogant, and aloof, yet exuded a domineering aura that looked down upon the world. What a handsome and beautiful young man, especially with the white robe on his body, which was emitting starlight. He looked even more handsome and aloof. At this time, even the powerful cultivators of the sage sects and ancient clans in the hall widened their eyes and looked at the young man in the hall in disbelief. They had heard that the successor of the Ling people looked like a dog. However, they did not expect him to be so pretentious. Even some of the proud daughters of the sage sects who came with their elders were looking at Ling Xiao with starlight in their eyes. Their faces were slightly red. Obviously, they were lusting after Ling Xiao's body. No wonder this bastard was notorious, but there were still women who were willing to take the initiative to approach him. Just as appearance alone was enough to make people unable to stop themselves. It was impossible to marry him, but it was still possible for them to feel comfortable. Young master, a Jew turned around and saw Ling Xiao. A smile appeared on her originally cold face. This is a gift from the Sacred Lord. Also, the Sacred Lord said, a Jew leaned over and whispered a few words in Ling Xiao's ear. The latter immediately smiled and nodded. Thank Mother for me. Yes. Young master, if there's nothing else, a Jew will go back first. As soon as she finished speaking, a Jew bowed towards Ling Tian and walked out of the hall. Xiao, why aren't you greeting the seniors? Ling Tianlin smiled bitterly. This kid always had a lazy look on his face. No wonder he was so likable. He didn't really care about Ling Xiao's reputation. After all, just like what he said, strength was the foundation of a man. Although Ling Tianlin didn't care, it didn't mean that others didn't care. He had heard over the past few days that the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace seemed to be rather against the marriage. Haha, Ling people are honored by the presence of all the uncles here to attend my engagement ceremony. This nephew is overwhelmed by your favor. Ling Xiao grinned and bowed to everyone present. Uncles, is it time for you to present your congratulatory gifts? The smiles on everyone's faces froze the moment Ling Xiao finished his second sentence. Shameless. They were guests from afar. They hadn't even warmed up their seats and were asked to hand over their gifts. Moreover, the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace hadn't arrived yet. If they took it out now, the gifts would all belong to him? Uncles, what are you waiting for? When my fiancée arrives later, half of the gifts will be given to her. Hurry up. Damn, this B***starred really wanted to take all the gifts for himself. Shameless. Too shameless. Just now, everyone's impression of Ling Xiao had changed a little because of his appearance. But in just a short moment, the rumors of young Master Ling people being extremely shameless were confirmed. He even tricked his fiancée. How heartless. The problem was, who wouldn't want to take care of a peerless genius like Nian Qingyan? But this Ling Xiao, not only was he shameless, but he was also a weirdo. Ahem, Lord Ling Xiao is indeed different from the rest. On behalf of the 10,000 Swords Holy Ground, I present the Divine Sword Qiao. Young Master Wang, please accept it. In the hall, a black-robed elder suddenly stood up and smiled faintly as he held a 3-foot-long sword in both hands. 10,000 Swords Holy Ground. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. At this moment, Ling Tian was standing beside the elder with a respectful expression. So, it's the 10,000 Swords Holy Leader. Haha, thank you. Ling Xiao held the ancient sword and felt a sharp aura. It was actually a high-grade divine artifact. Good sword. Good sword. Brother Tian, what do you think? Ling Tian's expression froze as he looked at Ling Xiao helplessly. This B***starred wants to give this sword to me? Otherwise, why would he ask for my opinion? Ling Xiao, don't think that I will forgive you just because you're trying to please me. Dream on. This sword is a famous divine sword in the 10,000 Swords Holy Ground. It is naturally excellent. Ling Tian suppressed the emotions in his heart. He cultivated the way of the sword and had an instinctive closeness to swords. The 10,000 Swords Holy Ground had put in a lot of effort to celebrate Ling Xiao's wedding. This Qiao, a divine sword, was one of the best even in the entire 10,000 Swords Holy Ground. Although the 10,000 Swords Holy Leader had also given him a divine sword when he became his disciple, it was obviously inferior to Qiao. But what was going on with Ling Xiao? Why did he seem to be a different person after returning to the clan? Could it be he had other motives? Could it be that he saw my divine vein and wanted to take it for himself? Ling Tian's face instantly turned pale. The change of emotions in his eyes naturally did not escape Ling Xiao's eyes. Haha, since Brother Tian likes it, it proves that this sword is really good. Sect Master Duan, give it to Qingshan. Ling Xiao handed Qiao to Duan Wuyong. The 10,000 Swords Holy Leader and Ling Tian were stunned at the same time. Their faces were ashen as if they had eaten feces. Then I'll thank Lord Ling Xiao on behalf of Qingshan. Duan Wuyong obviously did not expect Ling Xiao to do such a thing in front of the 10,000 Swords Holy Leader. His old face instantly turned into a daisy. The 10,000 Swords Holy Ground and his Heavenly Sword Immortal sect were both sword sect orthodoxies and were often compared. In recent years, the 10,000 Swords Holy Ground had produced a few sword Dao prodigies, and their reputation had surpassed the Heavenly Sword Immortal sect. This made Duan Wuyong very unhappy. But today, seeing how Ling Xiao's casual move made the 10,000 Swords Holy Leader suffer, Duan Wuyong felt a burst of joy. Young Master's engagement is a joyous occasion. The Heavenly Sword Immortal sect is gifting you 2 ancient glazed cups. They can transform qi into spirits and are most suitable for drinking wine. Good stuff, this is good stuff. Hearing this, Ling Xiao's face instantly revealed a sincere smile. Duan Wuyong knew him best. What divine sword or saber? Did he look like someone who lacked spiritual treasures? Only this kind of strange thing would suit Ling Xiao's taste the most. Seeing this scene, all the orthodoxy's experts in the main hall narrowed their eyes and could not help but sigh inwardly. The rumors are true. Chapter 107. He gave up the high-grade divine sword and gave it to someone else. He was so happy with the broken cup. Ling Xiao was indeed worthy of being called a spoiled brat. Moreover, the name Qing Chan did not sound like a man's name at all. Ling Xiao actually gave the gift from the sacred master of 10,000 swords to another woman on the day of his engagement. Damn Xiao. Before tomorrow, the headlines of the entire Shenzhou would be that Ling people's successor was a playboy, humiliated the sacred master's fiancée on the day of his engagement, and was suspected to have fallen in love with a woman named Qing Chansai. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and give me the gift. It'll be too late if you wait any longer. Ling Xiao naturally did not care about what others were thinking. He did not know how Ling Tian got involved with the sacred master of 10,000 swords. However, he would use his actions to tell everyone that anyone who had anything to do with Ling Tian would not have a good ending. Rome wasn't built in a single day. If he cared about Ling Tian too much, that brat would become suspicious again. It would be counterproductive. Only by coaxing and beating at the same time and giving him space to think would the child be obedient. As for whether things would develop according to his plan in the end, it would depend on whether Ling Tian was qualified or not. It was not that he could not give the ninth Dan Ocean, but the prerequisite was that it had to be worth it. Ling Xiao. As expected, Ling Tian's gaze towards Ling Xiao could no longer be described as cold. This bastard was still as annoying as ever. The sacred master of the Dao Palace has arrived. Outside the main hall, a soft shout suddenly sounded. Ling Xiao's hand, which was originally reaching out to the crowd, stopped awkwardly in midair. He turned to look in the direction of the main hall, and in the next moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed. Damn it! 10,000 luck points. At this moment, Ling Xiao's eyes were about to go blind. He did not see Nian Qingyun's face at all. He only saw her body emitting a golden light like a new sun. It was extremely dazzling. Wait, what's with the Dao Law aura on her body? Ethereal Dao Law. Nian Qingyun actually comprehended the Dao Law. Paong. How old is she? She's already a Paong expert? Wait a little longer. What? She actually has the chaotic spiritual divine body. F*CK. This divine body was compatible with the heavenly Tao. It was no wonder that she was able to comprehend the Tao Law at such a young age. Most importantly, it was said that dual cultivation with this physique would bring endless benefits. I'm rich. No, he was too lucky. To be able to marry such a peerless goddess and be able to cultivate while lying down every day, such luck. Ling Xiao suddenly felt that his villain setting wasn't so firm anymore. This was clearly a treatment that only the chosen one could enjoy. However, no one should know about Nian Qingyun's divine body. Otherwise, it was impossible for those old monsters whose cultivation had already reached a bottleneck not to be tempted. This was a top-notch cultivation furnace. Even if her background was terrifying, the Shenzhou continent did not lack old perverts. If not for the fact that Ling Xiao had the eye of nirvana and the innate ability to see through people, he would never have known about Nian Qingyun's secret. Ling Xiao even thought that the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace probably did not know the secret of her divine body. After all, with such a physique, how could he know without trying? However, what was the matter with the person standing behind her? Why was he looking at him with a strange expression? Also, what was that thing he was carrying? A heavy black ruler? He looked a little familiar. 2,000 luck points. F*CK. My brother is here. At this moment, the entire sacred palace of the Ling people fell into a strange silence. Everyone stared at the peerless beauty who was walking with light steps. Their faces were filled with obvious shock. This was especially the case for the descendants of the sage sects and the disciples of the ancient races. Every single one of them was flushed with anger, as though they were ready to die at any moment. Her snow-white skin was like fine jade. Her jade-like hands were as slender as spring onions. Her white robe fluttered in the wind like a fairy. Her temperament was otherworldly, but it was filled with an awe-inspiring coldness. She was otherworldly, as if all the beauty in the world was overshadowed by her. Nian Xingyun was indeed the top goddess of the eastern border. Ahem! Ling Tian Lin coughed lightly, which made everyone come back to their senses. Instantly, a trace of embarrassment appeared on their faces. The goddess of the Holy Ji Palace was indeed worthy of her reputation. Her reputation of bringing disaster to all races was not just for show. Even though her face was covered with a white veil, it did not affect her beauty at all. Instead, it added to her mysteriousness. But why did she bring a man with her on the day of her engagement? Moreover, judging by the young man's appearance, with his sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, he looked quite handsome. One look, and one could tell that he was not an ordinary man. At this moment, he was standing next to Nian Xinyan. Both of them were dressed in white, and they looked like a couple of immortals. So the goddess is here. Ling Tianlin's eyes flashed with a trace of displeasure. However, in front of so many people, he could not lose his temper. He did not want to embarrass the Ling people. However, Ling Xiao just smiled and shook his head. He walked up to Nian Xingyun and reached out to hold her soft, jade-like hand. Lord Ling Xiao. Just then, the young man beside Nian Xingyun suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. There was a trace of mockery in his eyes. Although he could not see Ling Xiao's cultivation level, he thought that he must have brought a spiritual treasure to hide his cultivation level. However, Lin Shi was confident that no one in the same generation as him in the entire Xingzhou could be his opponent. With a flawless heart of Tao, the world would not accept it. Who are you? Ling Xiao frowned, but he was secretly happy. He had already guessed that today's engagement party would not be peaceful. How could a peerless genius like Nian Xingyun not have a few bootlickers following her around? Although he also wanted to bootlick her now, the young man's luck was even more tempting. Here came another piece of trash who wanted to use him as a stepping stone. However, Ling Xiao felt that the young man in front of him, whether it was his appearance or his aura, was somewhat familiar. In particular, the Black Ruler was very similar to a divine artifact in his memory. Could it be that there was also an old grandpa in this young man's ring who could refine pills? Was he also on the path of collecting spiritual fire and rising up as a good-for-nothing? The Black Ruler had the smell of fire on it. It was a familiar pattern. Could his surname be Xiao? I am Lin Shi. This young man was naturally Lin Shi, who had followed Nian Xingyun all the way to the Ling people. That day, he had sensed her aura and found Nian Xingyun in the depths of the Sunset Mountain overnight. Although the goddess of the Tao Palace pretended to be cold and indifferent, this time she did not take the initiative to leave. Lin Shi knew that Nian Xingyun most likely did not want to marry Ling Xiao, so she wanted to use him as a shield. However, he was more than willing to be a scapegoat. After all, who in the entire Xingzhou had the right to be used by Nian Xingyun? Only he, Lin Shi, old Lin's family? You're finally here. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. Since ancient times, the Lin family had produced good-for-nothings, and good-for-nothings had great luck. 2,000 luck points would be 20,000 villain points. The higher the luck points, the more valuable the reward after killing someone. Ling Xiao had known this for a long time. Right now, he was looking at Lin Shi as if he was looking at a mountain of gold. Looking at the wretched-looking successor of the Ling people with a smile on his face, Lin Shi suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A chill instantly spread from his anus. Does this guy have some kind of special fetish? Otherwise, why wouldn't he look at Nian Xingyun and smile at me instead? You're also here to give me a congratulatory gift, right? Haha. Although I don't know you, one look and I can tell that you're a good person. However, Ling Xiao's next words caused a look of surprise and mockery to flash across Lin Shi's eyes. This idiot was not only arrogant and ignorant, but he was also not very smart. No, I'm here today to tell you that Nian Xingyun is not good enough for you. Chapter 108. Boom! The entire hall was suddenly enveloped by a powerful aura. All the experts of the Ling clan looked at the young man in white who was standing in front of the hall with anger in their eyes. Great. So this guy is here to provoke us? However, which force in the Shengzhou would dare to humiliate the Ling people and steal the bride on the day of the engagement? Lin Shi? That name sounds a little unfamiliar. Moreover, there shouldn't be any divine emperors or ancient clans with the surname Lin in the Shengzhou. After all, the ancient experts with the surname Lin, such as the ancient Emperor Lin Yin, the eternal martial Emperor Lin Yun, and the symbol ancestor Lin Dong, had all brought their clans to the upper world after they had achieved success in their cultivation. There were many ancient clans in the Shengzhou, but none of them had the surname Lin. Are you saying that I'm not worthy of her? Ling Zhao's expression remained calm, which surprised Nian Qingyun and Lin Shi. After all, according to the rumors, this young master of the Ling people was famous for being arrogant and violent, and he would kill anyone who disagreed with him. That's right. Don't you know what kind of reputation Ling Xiao has in the Shengzhou? Lin Shi sneered, and a wave of heat surged into the sky, faintly resisting the pressure of the elders of the Ling people. It was indeed the aura of a spiritual fire. The smile on Ling Zhao's face deepened. Although Lin Shi had yet to comprehend the power of the Tao, he had faintly touched the threshold. Moreover, the spiritual fire of heaven and earth was derived from the origin of fire. As long as Ling Xiao could fuse a few of them, he would be able to comprehend the Tao of fire. How comfortable! No wonder Nian Qingyan was the female lead. She had given him so many gifts as soon as she arrived. Ling Xiao didn't believe that Lin Shi didn't have a spiritual fire in his body. Moreover, according to his previous routine, he definitely knew where the next spiritual fire was going to be born. Do you think so too? Ling Xiao looked past Lin Shi and fixed his gaze on Nian Qingyan. He didn't care about the bootlickers around her, but he couldn't tolerate his fiancée having someone else in her heart. Ling Xiao could forgive her if she was just testing him with Lin Shi. At most, it would be PI. If there was really something between the two of them, Ling Xiao would naturally choose to forgive her. What a joke. 10,000 fate points and the chaotic spiritual divine body. Why would a villain like me need true love? Wouldn't it be better to just chain me up and lock me up in the tower as a furnace? Moreover, given Nian Qingyan's luck, if she transformed into a treasure-seeking beast, she would certainly be able to help Ling Xiao find the countless treasures hidden in the Shengzhou continent. After all, luck, this thing was not something that could be casually said. Ordinary geniuses would have a hard time finding the secret grounds, even if they racked their brains. But in the eyes of these people, they were like stars in the night sky, bright and dazzling. Isn't that infuriating? In fact, Ling Xiao couldn't help but think about what he should do to mark Lin Shi's body. I have come here because of my master's order to get engaged to you. However, in my eyes, the love of the world is like a fleeting cloud. Therefore, even if I get engaged to you, I will not fall in love with you. The same goes for others. Nian Qingyun coldly glanced at Ling Xiao, but her words were meant for the two of them. How could she not know about Lin Shi's feelings for her? However, since she was on the path to immortality, cultivation was the most important thing. Although she was somewhat grateful to Lin Shi, it was far from the extent of losing her mind. Not to mention this notorious young master Ling people in front of her. Men, haha, are all pigs. Her master had said that the men in this world were all animals without feelings and lusted after her body. This was not false at all. Usually, those ancient race geniuses and famous monsters looked at her with extremely disgusting eyes. Although Lin Shi was a little different from them, it was just a little different. However, this Ling Xiao in front of her was indeed not bad looking. He was as handsome as jade and had a natural Taoist charm. However, her master had also said that the more handsome a man was, the more likely he was to deceive others. Nian Qingyun didn't know how her master, who had always regarded men as dirt and was as pure as ice and as pure as jade, knew this. However, what master said was definitely right. This Ling Xiao was not only shameless and greedy, but also a liar full of lies. Big liar. Otherwise, what was he doing when she entered the hall just now? Was he asking for gifts from everyone? Extremely shameless. The rumors were indeed true. I see. Ling Xiao nodded. This Nian Qingyun was indeed a cultivator of the heartless great Tao. The trace of coldness in her words and actions was definitely not fake. He believed that in her eyes, Lin, she was absolutely no different from others. Wasn't wishful thinking the self-cultivation of a bootlicker? The reason why she brought Lin Shi here today to Ling people was probably that she really didn't want to be engaged with him. However, if this Nian Qingyun was an ordinary genius, Ling Xiao wouldn't care about her no matter how beautiful she was. However, the 10,000 luck points on her were really tempting. Moreover, Ling Xiao had to try the taste of the chaotic spiritual divine body no matter what. Otherwise, wouldn't he be letting down his identity as a villain? Goddess Nian, let's not talk about whether you will fall in love with me for the time being. Since today's engagement was discussed by my father and your master, it can't be delayed no matter what. So, I'd better ask your friend to leave. Ling Xiao looked coldly at Nian Qingyun and said calmly, Lin Shi would be killed sooner or later, but he had to contribute his light and heat first. There was no hurry. Huh? When Nian Qingyun saw this scene, a trace of doubt arose in her heart. Wasn't this Ling Xiao known as the Shengzhou Sea King? Didn't they say that he would reveal his true nature when he saw young and beautiful women? Why was he pretending to be a sanctimonious person now? Nian Qingyun had complete confidence in her own charm. However, Ling Xiao's current performance was somewhat beyond her expectations. Nian Qingyun actually saw a trace of transcendence in him. Liar. Indeed, he was a liar from the inside out. Why? Lord Ling Xiao, are you afraid? Lin Shi sneered, not at all annoyed by Nian Qingyun's words. Her character had always been like this. However, if she didn't like him, why would she bring him to the sacred realm of Ling people? Thinking of the wonderful feeling in his dream, Lin Shi felt a fire burning in his stomach. Nian Qingyun's jade-like, beautiful feet were enough for him to play with for a whole year. Slurp. Afraid? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the young man in front of him. He could understand that a child of destiny who grew up in this mold actually had some inferiority complex. They had been despised since they were young and would be mocked and looked down upon wherever they went. Now that he was standing in front of the woman he loved, he naturally had to pretend that he was invincible in the world. It couldn't be helped. Other than having a little confidence in their cultivation, they really didn't have much confidence in themselves. Usually, these children of destiny would have ordinary looks, a tacky name, and a declining family background. Even the number of numinous treasures they had were few and far between. How could they compare with a young master of an ancient clan like Ling Xiao? Of course, only by ruthlessly stepping on them could they vent their anger and forge a flawless Tao heart. Since you're not afraid, fight with me. Chapter 109. Let's fight. The playful smile on Ling Xiao's face intensified. These children of destiny were truly the same. Anyone who saw him would want to stomp on him. That's right. If you lose today, I'll return Goddess Qingyun her freedom. Lin Shi never thought that he would lose, so he didn't consider the consequences of his defeat. He had a flawless Tao heart, so of course he had to be supreme. Otherwise, how could he show the true meaning of extraordinary children of destiny in this chaotic world? Return her freedom? Ling Xiao shook his head, and his eyes gradually turned cold. At that moment, the countless ancient sect experts in the hall looked at the two people in front of them with playful expressions. The young man in white had obviously reached the threshold of the Pong stage. Moreover, the flame aura on his body was somewhat of Tao law. Although most of the people present had never heard of Lin Shi's name, they couldn't deny that he was a genius. As for Ling Xiao, in the past few days, many rumors about this young master of the Ling people had spread in the eastern border. However, no one could say for sure how powerful he was. Ling Xiao, don't tell me that all the titles you have are just for show? You don't even have the courage to fight with me? Lin Shi laughed wildly, and his words were full of mockery. One of the reasons he came today was to reject the marriage for Nian Qingyun. Another reason was to trample on the prestige of the Ling people and become famous in the Shengzhou. This way, his sister and father would know that he was still alive. Lin Shi was confident that with his current strength, he could completely protect them as long as he merged with another spirit fire. As for the enemies who had hunted him back then, it seemed that they were not worth mentioning at all. Did you lose contact with a younger sister? Of course, Ling Xiao already knew what Lin Shi was thinking. A member of a small aristocratic family dared to provoke the Ling people. If he wasn't stupid, he must want to become famous. Judging from Lin Shi's appearance, he shouldn't be an idiot. Therefore, his current actions must have a deeper meaning. How did you know? The ferocity on Lin Shi's face instantly froze. Soon after, he seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly widened. Could it be that the people who chased after us were Ling people? At this moment, the hatred in Lin Shi's eyes could no longer be concealed. He had not expected his father's enemy to be one of the most famous ancient clans in the Shenzhou continent. But if it weren't for them, how would this Ling Xiao know about the secrets of that year? F***CK. It was truly a case of wearing out iron shoes to find something in vain. The ups and downs of fate were predestined. However, he had accidentally exposed his identity today. He would have to be more careful for a long time to come. Ling people's ruthlessness was something he had witnessed when he was 12 years old. Ling people might not be so shameless as to attack him in front of so many sects, but in the future, it was hard to say. Hypocrite. That seemed to be a synonym for the ancient race. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully arousing the suspicion of the destined child. This is in line with the style of a villain. Villain points increased by 1,000 points. Sure enough, it's all outdated. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked at Lin Shi with an even more playful gaze. Lin Shi must have been separated from his sister. His reckless actions were just to attract the latter's attention. Moreover, according to the routine, his younger sister should also have a strong background. She was either taken in as a disciple by an expert or an illegitimate daughter of a large ancient race. Now, she had already been taken back and was living a life of great attention. She must also be looking for Lin Shi. After all, there was still a hidden relationship between them. It was just that Lin Shi had been busy cultivating and searching for secret realms in the past few years. He was not well known, so he had not found her yet. Buy one, get one free. Kill Lin Shi and then attract another woman of destiny. This was simply too lucky. What did you do to Ling? Lin Shi's body began to tremble slightly. In the past few years, he had been experiencing life and death situations. The only thing in his heart was the whereabouts of his sister and father. He did not expect that he would accidentally find out who his enemy was today. It seemed that he had made the right decision to come to the Ling people. Although it was difficult for him to fight against the entire Ling people with his current strength. But humph! As long as he could integrate the 9 spirit fires, Elder Ling had said that he would be able to take the final step and become a Yuan Venerate with the help of the Blaze Scripture. When that happened, wouldn't the entire Ling people be destroyed with a wave of his hand? 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. I, Lin Shi, am only 18 years old. I have plenty of time to play with you. For a moment, Ling Xiao thought of Feng Ling. However, this thought was immediately extinguished. Although Feng Ling's origins were mysterious, it was obvious that she was inexperienced and had never experienced any hardships. However, when he saw the hatred in Lin Shi's eyes, Ling Xiao knew that it was about time. Nian Qingyan alone was not enough to make Lin Shi lose his rationality. Especially if he was crushed by Luo Yunyang later, there was no guarantee that this destined child would not have any misgivings and would not dare act recklessly. Therefore, Ling Xiao needed to give him some stimulation. He needed to stimulate him to quickly search for opportunities and improve his cultivation. This way, he would be able to sit back and reap the benefits. Still pretending? Forget it. I won't be afraid that you won't talk when I trample you under my feet. Lin Shi's eyes narrowed as he secretly made up his mind. Ling Xiao, cut the crap. Do you dare to fight with me? You think you're worthy of fighting with me? Ling Xiao suddenly shook his head and looked up at Nian Qingyun, who was behind Lin Shi. What about you? Do you want to fight with me too? It was normal for a destined child to be proud and arrogant. If he wanted them to submit completely, the best way was to fight them directly. Fight until they were exhausted, panting heavily, and sweating all over. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't. In this way, how could they still have the strength to be cold and arrogant? Especially women like this who cultivated the heartless Tao. He had to make them understand the pain of having feelings. The most primitive emotions in this world were fear and lust. The Buddha said that everything was empty. It was an epiphany after experiencing hardships. In other words, if one was not frustrated in life, who would be willing to give up the 7 emotions and cut off the 6 desires? Nian Xingyun was just a little girl who had never experienced anything personally. She had only cultivated the heartless Tao based on her beliefs. Wasn't this a joke? As for how to subdue this destined child, of course, it was to give her sweet love, ham, and soy milk. Stinky sister, I can even pretend to be whatever you like. One word, fight, and it's over. Arrogant. Nian Xingyun snorted coldly, her beautiful eyes full of disdain. In the entire Shenzhou, there were people who could compete with her, but Ling Xiao was definitely not one of them. The ethereal Tao laws were mysterious and unpredictable. If she wanted to kill Ling Xiao, the latter would not have the slightest room to resist. Well, since you look down on me so much, then today I will properly prove myself. With that, Ling Xiao walked out of the sacred hall and landed on the square. Suddenly, all the Ling people's eyes were focused on him. They could finally see with their own eyes whether the successor of the Ling people lived up to his reputation or was truly invincible. Of course, only the strong cultivators and prodigies who had come to watch the ceremony were curious. At this moment, all the Ling people had a look of disdain on their faces. They even looked at Lin Shi as if they were looking at a fool. Ling Xiao, today, I, Lin Shi, will trample on you and achieve supreme honor. Lin Shi naturally ignored the gazes of the Ling people. From the moment he walked out of the Lin family, he had been suffering this unfair treatment. But in the end, those who mocked and looked down on him were all dead. Today, Ling Xiao would be no exception. Chapter 110. Ling Xiao, today I'll settle all the old and new grudges with you. Lin Shi took a step forward and landed from the sky, creating countless cracks on the stone floor. Around him, a wave of heat quietly spread. The entire Ling clan's main hall seemed to have turned into a sea of hellfire. What a terrifying fire energy. It seems that Lin, she has already reached the threshold of the laws of Tao. That's right, he is close to the Paong stage. Once he reaches that level, he will be accompanied by the laws of Tao. The engagement party of the successor of the Ling people is going to fail. They've already come all the way here to steal the bride. Ling Xiao has no other choice. That's good. Ling people's ambition. Many powerful cultivators of the sage sex and the ancient race walked out of the hall and looked at the 2 people on the square, sneering. Marriage was a common thing in the Shenzhou. Of course, everyone had their own agenda. The Ling people were already powerful enough. If they joined forces with the ethereal palace, the remaining forces of the eastern border would be defeated. However, Ling Tianlin sat in the hall, showing no intention of watching the battle. Even the myriad Daos demon master, Wan Ren Di, sat calmly in his palace and sipped his wine. A young man who had reached the threshold of the laws of Tao wanted to challenge Ling Xiao. This chaotic world was so mesmerizing. Emperor Ling, the sacred leader of myriad swords, hesitated. He was the closest to Emperor Ling, so he didn't know what to do. Should he go and watch the show? What do you think of my son? Before parting, Ling Tian gave him a meaningful look, as well as Ling Tian, who was standing by the side. Lord Ling Xiao is a dragon among men, the light of the Shenzhou, the pride of the orthodox sects, and the benchmark of cultivation. The sacred leader of myriad swords felt aggrieved, but he didn't dare to look down on Ling Xiao in front of the god emperor of the ancient race. This little bastard had made him lose face just now. He couldn't wait for Lin Shi to ruthlessly stomp on him and crush his head. I'm talking about Tian. Ling Tianlin shook his head and smiled. He picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. As for Shower, I naturally don't need to worry. With his talent, he's not someone that can be provoked by just anyone. Pucci, 10,000 men's enemy, almost spat out a mouthful of wine. Sure enough, the two of them were carved from the same mold. Extremely arrogant and domineering. Sacred Lord Myriad Swords smiled awkwardly and nodded in agreement, but his eyes flashed with a hint of gloominess. Emperor Ling, why are you still pretending in front of us at a time like this? No wonder that Ling Xiao was so arrogant and domineering. It turned out that he had learned his pretentious skills from you. No need to worry. Lin Shi had clearly touched upon the threshold of the Tao, and his cultivation was among the top, even among the younger generation of the Shenzhou continent. Don't you see the big saber on his back? He's so hungry. The iron law of the immortal cultivation world was that the more obscure a person was, the more likely it was that he or she had something to rely on once they dared to provoke him or her. Moreover, how bad could a young genius who could catch Nianqingyun's eye be? Young Master Tian is extraordinarily handsome, and his perseverance is commendable. Although he can't cultivate spiritual qi, the path of the Sword Dao is different from the ordinary path. As long as you have a sword in your heart, you can kill an immortal with a wave of your hand. Sacred Lord Myriad Sword's expression suddenly turned serious. With his eyesight, how could he not see Ling Tian's sharpness? Fate was making fools of people. With the talent of the second young master of the Ling people, he should have stood at the peak of the Sword Dao, but he didn't have an elixir C. You can kill an immortal with a wave of your hand. Then, Sacred Lord, I'll leave Tianer to you. Don't worry, Emperor Ling. I will do my best. Sacred Lord Myriad Swords bowed and looked outside the hall. He could sense that a terrifying aura was gradually surging in the square in front of the main hall. Lord Ling Xiao, sorry for the offense. Lin Shi sneered. He held the black ruler in his hand horizontally, and a flame power visible to the naked eye instantly spread out, burning the heavy ruler into a scarlet color. Come on, show me. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. His starry robe shone brightly. If one didn't know his temperament, his appearance and appearance were indeed unparalleled in the world. Humph, you overestimate yourself. Lin Shi stepped forward like a wolf hunting for its prey. The entire bluestone square instantly exploded and turned into endless ashes. Immediately after, his body began to be wrapped in layers of raging flames. That kind of strange deep red color made people feel hot all over at a glance. What cultivation technique is this? What a domineering flame. Of course, even the leaders of the ancient sects didn't expect a young man in the Xianqing stage to be able to merge the heaven and earth spiritual fire into his body. However, all of this did not surprise Ling Xiao in the slightest. Lin Shi was like the god of fire from the upper world. His entire body was covered in flames. He even showed signs of a breakthrough. The space in front of him collapsed by itself, as if it couldn't withstand the terrifying heat. It was domineering and sharp. Even some of the geniuses of the sage sects looked at Lin Shi with respect. Lin Shi has broken through again. Nianqingyun stood in front of the crowd in a white robe and bare feet. At this moment, her beautiful eyes also flashed with a strange splendor. She remembered when she first met the young man. He was dressed in linen clothes and had a bright smile. He always had a stubborn look on his face. At that time, Lin Shi's cultivation was only in the Soul C stage. But in just a year, he had already touched the threshold of the Pong stage. Even she felt ashamed of her inferiority to such a cultivation speed. Nianqingyun had no doubt that Lin Shi's name would resound throughout the Shenzhou continent in less than 5 years. An elegant young master with a peerless immortal appearance. Was this saying referring to a young man like him? Ling Xiao. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Lin Shi, who had transformed into an ancient god of fire, suddenly slashed out with his fire ruler. Spiritual flame, drunken wave. Monstrous flames covered the sky. The entire sky above the Ling people's sacred realm instantly turned into a sea of red flames. The sound of Tao reverberated without stopping. The fire ruler in Lin Shi's hand finally turned into a 1,000-foot giant and slammed down on Ling Zhao's head. The terrifying qi vortex dispersed and surged, producing waves of hissing sounds. Lin Shi's divine power was undoubtedly displayed at this moment. What a terrifying martial art. It's probably beyond the heaven grade, right? The playful expressions on the crowd's faces had already frozen. Everyone's eyes were filled with awe as they looked at the ruler that had shattered the void. No matter who won or lost today's battle, Lin Shi's name would definitely resound throughout the Shenzhou continent. Of course, no one believed that Ling Xiao would die at this moment. This was the Ling people's sacred realm, and there were countless Ling people standing around. No matter how strong Lin Shi was, he was only at the profound, clear stage and was an ant-like existence in front of a god emperor or even a god king. However, what he did today was a real slap to the Ling people's face. On the day of the engagement, the young master of the direct bloodline was crushed by a nameless prodigy, and his fiancée left in anger. Tomorrow's headlines in the Shenzhou continent seemed to have been booked in advance by Ling Xiao. Chapter 111. Above the Ling people, the clouds shattered, and the sun and the moon reversed. Terrifying, scorching winds spread in all directions, stirring up the clouds within thousands of miles. Under the shattered void, Lin Shi clenched the giant ruler with both hands and smashed it at a young man, standing in the square with his hands behind his back. At this moment, Ling Zhao's figure seemed extremely small, like a lowly ant. People couldn't help but feel pity for him. How tragic! He hadn't even warmed up to the position of the successor of the Ling people, and he was inexplicably crushed on the engagement day. If this matter spread out, not only would Ling Zhao's reputation be ruined, but it would also be a great humiliation for the entire Ling people. Spirit Flame Ruler? Are you as King reckless as me? However, just as the ruler crushed the void and landed on top of Ling Zhao's head, a ray of extremely bright light suddenly bloomed from his body. In just an instant, the void that was originally filled with flames turned into a sea of black clouds. There were faint sounds of thunder descending, like a divine punishment. This aura. In front of the main hall, the expressions on everyone's faces instantly became sluggish. Even the powerhouses of the Ling people were dumbfounded as they stared at the figure that was emitting starlight and rippling with immortal energy. After a long while, they swallowed hard. Boom! In the sky, countless purple lightning bolts fell, like huge stars destroying the world. At this moment, Ling Xiao slowly raised his hand and caught the giant ruler that was tearing through the sky. Like a loud bell. The purple lightning tore through the clouds and completely enveloped Ling Zhao's figure. Under the giant ruler, his figure still seemed small and insignificant. However, at this moment, no one dared to ignore his existence. Break! Suddenly, a chuckle came from within the lightning and flames. Then, everyone watched in horror as the 300-meter-long ruler began to release a strange lightning glow. Crack, crack. Cracks spread rapidly. In just an instant, it completely turned into flames and scattered in the air. This is the Tao of lightning. Finally, someone began to exclaim. Immediately after, countless exclamations resounded throughout the entire Holy Land. At this moment, no one paid any attention to the white-clothed figure that was falling from the sky. Everyone's gazes converged on the illusory lightning figure that hadn't taken a single step since the beginning. Lightning Tao Law. This was the true power of Tao laws. That domineering aura was filled with boundless destruction. Even the various sacred lords felt an inexplicable palpitation in their hearts. Peerless evildoer, invincible immortal. It turned out that the successor of the Ling people had hidden himself so deeply. Even Ling Tianlin and Wan Rin's enemy had unknowingly appeared in front of the crowd, looking at the youth in the distance with astonishment. Perhaps others were unaware, but they were extremely clearly aware that Ling Zhao's body had fused with another type of Tao law. Two types of Tao laws accompanying him. What kind of heavenly talent was this? To put it bluntly, even the heirs of the supreme empires, great sects, and hidden sacred clans in the center of the Shenzhou continent would not be more outstanding than Ling Xiao. Young master is too damn strong. Ling Rui and the others stood behind the crowd. Apart from shock, there was also a trace of luck on their faces. If not for young master's benevolence, it would have taken less than a single move to kill him yesterday. Only Ling Tian clenched his fists tightly and looked at Ling Xiao with an indescribable complex expression. If you hadn't dug out my Dan C, the one enjoying this supreme honor would be me. Ling Xiao, sooner or later, I will trample you under my feet and take back everything that belongs to me. Lightning Dao Law. Nian Xingyun's beautiful eyebrows furrowed slightly. Now, when she looked at Ling Xiao again, she no longer looked down on him. Instead, there was a trace of vigilance. Lin Shi's strike, just now, could not be said to be weak. In fact, even if she wanted to break it, she would have to use some trump cards. However, Ling Xiao had only stretched out a hand and crushed the monstrous flames into pieces. Nian Xingyun knew that this had something to do with the Dao Law he had comprehended. The Lightning Dao Law was originally the most domineering force in the world. However, she knew that if she were in his shoes, she would not be able to do it so easily and naturally. From the beginning to the end, he did not even use the slightest bit of spiritual energy. He had only used the Dao Law to crush Lin Shi. It was very terrifying. For the first time, Nian Xingyun had a trace of interest in a man. It was not a favorable impression. She just wanted to know who was stronger between her and Ling Xiao. Tap, tap, tap. It was not until the sound of footsteps in front of him that the confusion on Lin Shi's face gradually disappeared. He struggled to stand up from the ground and looked at the calm and indifferent face in front of him. In addition to fear, there was also a trace of strong unwillingness in his eyes. How could it be? How could he have comprehended the Dao Law? How could such a pampered piece of trash be more outstanding than him? Lin Shi was unwilling and angry, but he did not dare to show it at all. He could not die. He still had a chance. As long as he could find the top 10 heaven and earth spirit fire, he would definitely enter the Paong state and comprehend the Dao Law. At that time, Ling Xiao could kill him with a wave of his hand. Moreover, Elder Ling had said that he had prepared a heavenly creation. Once he entered the Paong state, he would be able to inherit it. I usually don't like to talk. If anyone talks to me, I will kill him directly. Ling Xiao's voice slowly resounded. The entire sacred realm of the Ling people was terrifyingly silent. Lord Ling Xiao. However, just as Lin Shi held the talisman tightly in his hand and wanted to take the opportunity to escape, in the distance, a beautiful figure in white suddenly walked over and blocked in front of Ling Xiao. Qingyun, don't you feel distant calling me young master? Ling Xiao smiled. There was no longer the fierce and domineering look on his face. There was only a touch of warmth like the starry sky. Lin Shi, you can go. Nian Xingyun did not pay attention to Ling Xiao. Instead, she turned to look at the embarrassed young man in white behind her. Qingyun, come with me. Lin Shi gritted his teeth. There was an indescribable grievance on his face. Although he had lost today, his Dao heart had become stronger. As the chosen one, the more he fought, the braver he became. How could he shrink back because of this? I won't. Since it's my tribulation, I will go through it myself. Nian Xingyun shook her head. Her eyes were shining with a green light. The Ling Xiao she saw today was indeed different from what the world said. She might have to settle this marriage too. Otherwise, if she really angered the Ling people, her master would lose face. Qingyun, don't say any more. Let's go. After Nian Qingyun finished speaking, she took the initiative to walk to Ling Xiao's side. The sun shone on her, making her look like an immortal. You, Ling Xiao, I've already gotten what you can't get. Qingyun, don't forget that you gave your first time to me. I will definitely prove to you that in this world, only I am worthy of you. Lin Shi smiled viciously. If he could not get the woman, no one else could either. Even if the two of them were engaged, he would bury a thorn in Ling Xiao's heart. a thorn that could make him feel pain at any time. Oh, first time? This son of a bitch was very bad. Ling Xiao smiled playfully and looked at Nian Qingyun meaningfully. However, at this moment, her pretty face was slightly red. She looked at Lin Shi with some embarrassment and anger. In the end, she did not explain anything and turned to walk toward the main hall. Ling Xiao, wait for me. I will be back. Seeing the gloominess in Ling Xiao's eyes, Lin Shi's lips curled into a smile. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared. The thorn had been buried. If he stayed here, he was really afraid that Ling Xiao would be angry and kill him. Of course, how could the Chosen One not have some life-saving trump cards on him? But those, of course, had to be used at the most critical moment. Chapter 112. Interesting. There are indeed some melodramatic emotional threads. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Even after Lin Shi's figure disappeared, he did not make a move to stop him. He had already left a spirit mark on Lin Shi's body. It would be difficult for ordinary experts to discover the method recorded in the ancient soul assimilation technique. Of course, even without Nian Qingyun, Ling Xiao did not intend to kill Lin Shi now. After all, there was still a lot of providence that could be taken from him. That was just the beginning. It was time for the treasure-seeking beast to play its role. Ling Xiao naturally coveted the heaven and earth spirit fire. There was still a long way to go for the 9 Dao laws. Moreover, he did not sense any remnant soul aura on Lin Shi's body today. It was obvious that the grandpa in his ring had deliberately concealed himself. To be able to avoid the spirit detection of a God Emperor expert, it seemed that this grandpa was quite something. The remnant soul of an expert was the nourishment for Ling Xiao's soul palace. He had already taken 500 out of 2,000 providence in today's battle. He just did not know what kind of surprise Lin Shi would bring the next time they met. The feeling of being disliked, but not being able to get rid of him. It was really quite comfortable. First time? Which first time? Ling Xiao turned around and glanced at the many experts in front of the hall. A smile appeared on his face again. He could feel that there was some inexplicable respect in everyone's eyes when they looked at him. The power of Dao laws was the difference between a genius and a genius in the Shenzhou continent. In particular, the disciples of the Universal Demon Sect and the people of the Ling people looked at him with a faint trace of fear in their eyes. To comprehend 2 types of Dao laws, this kind of talent could be said to be invincible. Lord Ling Xiao is indeed invincible in the world. The leader of the younger generation is none other than the young master. Lord Ling Xiao, I've been fond of you for a long time. Many ancient race geniuses immediately gathered around and stood in front of Ling Xiao, trying their best to curry favor with him. At this moment, in their eyes, the young master of the Ling people was not only incomparably handsome, but also immortal and divine. Such a person would definitely stand at the peak in the future. If they didn't lick his boots now, when would they? That's right, Lord Ling Xiao. One look at that Lin Shi, and I can tell he's a short-lived ghost. However, young master is magnanimous. This kind of magnanimity makes us blush with shame. Young master, I will be staying in the Sky Pavilion today. If you have time later, can you give me some pointers on my cultivation? Many proud girls began to show signs of infatuation in their eyes. Their mouths were full of fragrant orchids as they competed with each other in beauty. All they wanted was to obtain a trace of pity from this descendant of the Ling people. Oomph! At this moment, a cold snort suddenly came from the distant palace. Instantly, a strand of a peerlessly cold aura surged over, causing the countenance of many geniuses to turn pale and almost lose their minds. There seems to be an internal taste. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. This woman, regardless of status, background, or cultivation realm, had the same temperament. Beep. Congratulations to the host for piquing the curiosity of the destined woman. You have received 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Everyone, let's go. Today is my engagement ceremony. Everyone must drink until they're drunk. Ling Xiao grinned and walked towards the palace. Today is the day of the Lord Ling Zhao's wedding. The whole world should be celebrating. Yes, young master, please. The other geniuses were half a step behind Ling Xiao. Like stars surrounding the moon, they clustered around the former as they walked forward. Seeing this scene, a trace of bitterness flashed across the faces of all the ancient sect leaders. They were afraid that after today, this descendant of the Ling people would really be able to dominate the entire generation. The engagement banquet had officially begun. At the banquet, regardless of whether it was the mighty figures of the ancient sects or the divine emperors, they all presented congratulatory gifts to wish Ling Xiao and Yin Qingyun a joyous occasion. Of course, Ling Xiao didn't stand on ceremony and kept all the congratulatory gifts in his pocket. Yin Qingyun, on the other hand, had a cold look on her face. She didn't eat or drink and didn't even look at Ling Xiao. The goddess of the Holy Ji Palace, the Ice Beauty, was indeed worthy of her reputation. Ha ha ha! Lord Ling Xiao is unparalleled. Why don't we take advantage of today's occasion and become sworn brothers? When I see young master, I feel like I'm seeing my own brother. This is a great idea. Woof, woof, woof. The entire hall was filled with joy and happiness. Ling Xiao didn't reject anyone and continued to drink and make merry with the heaven's favorites. He was extremely happy. On the other hand, Lin Shi didn't dare to hesitate at all after escaping from the Ling people's sacred realm. He used all his strength and ran towards the Sunset City. He wasn't in a hurry to get the spiritual fire. He was just worried that what he did today would anger the Ling people and lead to him being hunted down. Although Ling Xiao looked like a dignified person just now, this descendant of the ancient sects was the most hypocritical. Just now, he just wanted to show his generosity in front of Yin Qingyun. He probably hated himself to death in his heart. Humph! Ling Xiao, no matter how powerful you are, I have tasted your fiancé in my dreams. Whoosh! Sheer! Elder Ling's voice suddenly came from the ring. Elder Ling. A trace of gloominess flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. This old thing was usually very impressive when he was bragging. What about the heavenly flame supremacy? Why didn't he even dare to fart when he was humiliated just now? Let's find a place to stop first. Elder Ling's voice was serious. When he was in the Ling people just now, although he used a method to hide his aura, he still felt a terrifying divine sense that seemed to have noticed his existence. The Ling people's foundation made him a little afraid. If Lin Shi died, his efforts over the past 8 years would be completely wasted. Elder Ling, we haven't left the Cold Sky City yet. Once, Lin Shi frowned. Stop for a while? What if the Ling people's experts came after them? Don't panic when you encounter trouble. Come, eat this pill first. Elder Ling smiled faintly, showing the demeanor of an expert. You don't have to panic. At most, you can find another descendant. What about me? Lin Shi gritted his teeth and took out a small blue pill from the ring. There was some doubt in his eyes. Elder Ling, this is the face change pill. Eat it, and it can hide your aura and change your appearance. I guarantee that even your father won't be able to recognize you. So magical. Lin Shi naturally didn't doubt Elder Ling's methods. After all, according to him, he didn't rely on his heavenly flame supremacy cultivation to dominate the Shenzhou continent. He also had superb alchemy skills. Even now, some of the masters of the Shenzhou continent's supreme orthodoxy were once his followers. It was just that his physical body was now broken and only his soul was left. He didn't dare to contact these people for fear of causing more trouble. After all, the human heart was a complicated thing. But once Lin Shi could step into the heavenly flame supremacy realm, Elder Ling had promised him that at least 5 supreme orthodoxies would be at his disposal. And this was the reason why Lin Shi didn't take Ling Xiao and the Ling people seriously from the beginning. Look at this pie. It's big and round. It can't eat it in one bite. It's easy for it to be stuffed. Chapter 113. This is nothing. If I was at my peak, I could easily refine a pill to help you enter the Pong state. Elder Ling snorted. He wasn't bragging. Throughout the history of the Shenzhou, there were less than 5 supreme realm alchemists. Moreover, the blazing scripture he cultivated could directly fuse spiritual fire into his body. What did refining pills need? Of course, it was a pill furnace. No, of course, it was flames and talent. Elder Ling's spiritual fire was unparalleled in the world. It was normal for him to have a few god emperors behind him. What a pity. He had met a bad person and mistakenly believed in his disciple. In the end, he died. Don't worry, Elder Ling. I will work hard to cultivate and enter the god emperor realm as soon as possible. When the time comes, I can also help you find the alchemy materials to reconstruct your body. Lin Shi raised his head and swallowed the pill. Spiritual energy immediately spread out from his body. Then his appearance, voice, and cultivation changed slightly. Although Elder Ling always liked to brag, he did have a lot of good things on him. Ling Xiao, just you wait. Sooner or later, I will trample you under my feet. No, I will refine you into a corpse puppet and pour tea for me every day. At most, there are 2 more days. The spiritual fruit of Tao will probably mature. We have to make some preparations in advance. Elder Ling's tone was a little excited. The spiritual fruit of Tao. As long as he could refine it, he wouldn't have to curl up in this broken ring every day. Okay, don't worry, Elder Ling. I will definitely get the fruit for you, but Lin Shi suddenly lowered his voice. He wanted to say something, but stopped. He would step into the God Emperor realm sooner or later. But when that time came, Nian Qingyun would probably be tricked by Ling Xiao. He really couldn't stand his woman following behind that Ling people. Therefore, he had to find a chance to kill Ling Xiao first. As for the blood feud between the Lin family and the Ling people, when I rule the world and command all races, a mere Ling people will be destroyed with a wave of my hand. With Elder Ling's intelligence, it was easy to guess what Lin Shi was thinking. You want to kill Ling Xiao? That's right. Elder Ling, after today's battle, that Ling Xiao will eventually become my inner demon. If I don't kill him, I'm afraid that it will affect my mental state. He was the son of destiny, after all. He had to have a flawless Tao heart. He was invincible and suppressed his peers. But Lin Shi really did not expect Ling Xiao to be so strong. He actually almost crushed him to death with one hand. At that moment, Lin Shi felt a fear he had never felt before. To him, this fear was a humiliation. Yeah, I didn't expect that Ling Xiao would actually comprehend the Tao law power. The era of great battles is indeed full of monstrous geniuses. Even in the ancient times, those who could comprehend the Tao law at such a young age are already the top heaven's prides. Elder Ling sighed inwardly. Although he hadn't shown his face today, he could feel how terrifying Ling Xiao was from the ring. In particular, the lightning Tao law was the destruction Tao law that was the purest and most young in the world. If he was allowed to grow, this Ling Xiao might really become the Thunder Emperor of this generation. Elder Ling. Lin Shi clenched his fists. How could he not feel how tyrannical Ling Xiao was? But now that Elder Ling had said it, he felt an inexplicable unwillingness and hatred. But you don't need to belittle yourself. After all, it hasn't been long since you met me. As long as you have 5 more years, you will definitely surpass him. Elder Ling, 5 years is too long. Actually, it's not impossible for you to defeat Ling Xiao, if that inheritance still exists. Inheritance? What inheritance? A trace of greed flashed across Lin Shi's eyes. He had served the old man day and night not because he lacked love. As an old monster who had lived for thousands of years, his understanding of the Shengzhou was not something that just anyone could compare with. Yes, when I was traveling to Shengzhou back then, I found an ancient secret realm. It was the place where an almighty died, and there was a spirit fire that was extremely terrifying. According to my guess, that spirit fire should be the primordial emperor flame, ranked 3rd on the spirit fire list. Unfortunately, I had important matters to attend to at that time, and the secret realm was guarded by the Lost Clan, so I could only set up a method to seal it. I just don't know if anyone discovered it later. Primordial emperor flame? The place where an almighty died? Then the inheritance inside. Lin Shi's interest was immediately piqued. His entire body faintly trembled from excitement. If he could merge 3 spirit fires and comprehend the power of Tao laws, who in the entire Xingzhou would be his match? Moreover, if the place where an ancient almighty died did not contain any fortune, Lin Shi would want to slap this group of bastards to death. Elder Ling, where did you seal the secret realm? It's on a barren mountain in the eastern border. I think it's called Tao Comprehension Mountain or something. Elder Ling seemed somewhat hesitant, but Lin Shi was suddenly stunned. Tao Comprehension Mountain? Tian Yuan's secret realm. F*CK. This old man is bragging too much. Does he mean that he was the one who set up the seal on the Tian Yuan secret realm? If you're so awesome, why don't you seal the sky? You know this place? Elder Ling was shocked by Lin Shi's actions. Could it be that someone has discovered the secret realm? It's not just discovered. The myriad sect martial meeting that is held in the eastern border every 60 years is held on Tao Comprehension Mountain. Only the top 100 eastern border geniuses are qualified to enter the secret realm to train. Lin Shi frowned. Regardless of who sealed the secret realm, the fact that it contained heavenly fortune was known by all the sects in the eastern border. However, Lin Shi would never have dreamed that there would be a peerless flame sealed within. Moreover, the ancient Almighty's inheritance seemed to have never been discovered. In that case, Elder Ling, do you still remember the exact location of the place where the Almighty died? Of course I do. However, the ancient Lost Clan there is not easy to deal with. Humph! When the time comes, I won't be the only one entering the secret realm. When the time comes, there will naturally be people who will help us clean up the mess. Lin Shi smiled sinisterly. The Son of Destiny was best at using others to do his dirty work. However, before that, he had to obtain the undying heart flame in Sunset Mountain and enter the top 100 in the myriad sect martial meeting. Only then would he have the chance to enter the Tian Yuan secret realm. Moreover, with Ling Zhao's status, he would definitely enter the secret realm. When the time came, that place would be the ancient race's successor's tomb. All right, Cheer. Since we know the location of the secret realm, everything will be much simpler. As long as I am able to fuse with the spirit fruit of Tao this time, I will be able to lend you a helping hand. Let's first focus on the undying heart flame. You should know that although this spirit flame is not ranked as high as the immemorial Emperor flame, its power is strange. Especially for those who cultivate the spirit, it is a rare opportunity. Since you want to inherit my attainments in the Tao of alchemy, you cannot slack off on the cultivation of the spirit. Elder Ling, don't worry. I have already cultivated the 3rd move of the soul sword technique. If I am lucky and can find another soul stone, I might be able to cultivate the 4th move. A soul light flashed in Lin Shi's eyes, and an invisible and ferocious power swept out in an instant. Then a 1,000-feet-long crack appeared in the space in front of him. Chapter 114. Lin Shi was defeated in today's battle. However, he did not use many of his trump cards, especially in terms of spirit attainments. There were probably not many people in the entire Xingzhou who could compare to him. After all, compared to the spirit fire of heaven and earth, spirit techniques had long disappeared in the long river of history. If not for Elder Ling's teachings, he would not have come into contact with them at all. As for the soul sword technique, according to Elder Ling, it was passed down from an ancient soul supreme elder. He called himself Heavenly Spirit Saint, and his spirit techniques were superb. He dominated an era and eventually ascended to the immortal domain. Lin Shi had once obtained an ordinary-looking black stone by chance. He did not expect it to contain a spirit saint's inheritance. In the past few years, he had found 3 pieces. The 3 styles of soul sword was his biggest trump card besides the blazing scripture. Let's go. We'll go to the setting sun city to observe for 2 days. The spirit fruit of heaven and earth will ripen in 2 days. Elder Ling smiled. He was very satisfied with this disciple. At the very least, Lin Shi's character was better than ordinary ancient clan prodigies. Although his talent was a little ordinary, it was less likely to attract the attention of those almighties. In this chaotic world, it was easy to be hated by others if you were in the limelight. Wasn't it better to hide? Let them fight first while he secretly picked up equipment and medicine bottles. When most of the people were dead, he would appear out of nowhere and crush his generation. Elderling, why don't we merge with the undying heart flame first? That way, we will have more confidence. Lin, she did not care about more confidence. He was just worried that once he stole the spirit fruit, the fire wolf would chase after him. How would he have time to find a spirit fire? Anyway, the spirit fruit was not his. It was none of his business whether he got it or not. No, the birth of the spirit fire will definitely cause a phenomenon. When that time comes, countless experts will descend on the setting sun sacred mountain. It will be very troublesome to get the spirit fruit of heaven and earth. Let's take it first. As long as I can merge with it, the spirit fire will be ours no matter how many people come. Elderling's voice was firm. Although Lin Shi's eyes were gloomy, he did not say anything else. All right, you have the final say now. Ling people's sacred realm, Central Hall. The experts of the sage sects and ancient tribes wave their hands and bid farewell to Ling Tianlin and the others. Magnificent pavilions soared into the sky, and giant ships of more than 1,000 feet crushed the space. Streaks of heart-palpitating, ferocious auras flew over their heads. Ling people, who had been boisterous all day, finally quieted down completely. Ling Xiao and Ling Tianlin stood side by side as they looked at the countless figures flying away. Their eyes were cold. Among the supreme Taoist orthodoxies present today, only the universal demonic sect and a few other parties were truly on the Ling people's side. Most of the remaining people were probably here to find out more about Ling Xiao. Fortunately, Ling Xiao was competent enough to shatter the void with a single palm, achieving the might of the Thunder God. Ling people's prestige once again reached its peak. Xiao, do you want to send someone? No need, father. I have my own plans. Ling Xiao knew what Ling Tianlin wanted to do. Although Lin Shi's talent was inferior to his, he was definitely at the top of the Shenzhou continent. Moreover, a chosen one like him must have a lot of opportunities. As long as he was given time, he would grow up sooner or later. It was better to be prepared than to kill him. Ling Tianlin did not want Ling Xiao to make such a strong enemy. But, Xiao, I feel that there is a very strange aura on him. It can hide in front of me. I'm afraid. Ling Tianlin's eyes flashed coldly, but Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. It would be strange if there was none. However, as long as it was a remnant soul, no matter what realm it was just a supplement to him. Don't worry, father. I know what to do. But, Brother Tian, are you really going to hand him over to the sacred master of 10,000 swords? Ling people don't have a sword Dao grandmaster. I've seen Tian holding on to his sword for the past few years. Your mother and I owe him too much. So, as long as he likes it, it's fine. Ling Tianlin sighed, looking a little tired. He had never blamed Ling Xiao for this. After all, he was forced to do so. It was just that Xian Yuanyue's way of doing things was truly too cruel and unforgivable. Father, you don't have to blame yourself. Maybe this is a good thing. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked up at the sky. The yin-yang elixir C was useless to him now. Moreover, he still had a 9-layer elixir C left by a saint in his system. However, if he acted too eagerly now, it would attract Ling Tianlin's suspicion. It wouldn't be easy to completely resolve this matter. 7 years of forbearance, 100,000 times of drawing the sword. How much hatred must one have to have such perseverance? Ling Xiao did not doubt that if he followed the normal path, his ending would not be much better than Seat Song's. Sigh. Ling Tianlin did not speak again. Behind him, Nian Qingyun slowly walked up. Qingyun, are you tired? Ling Tianlin smiled gently. Nian Qingyun immediately shook her head in fear. Ling people Emperor Ling was one of the most terrifying existences in the Shenzhou eastern border. There were even rumors that the current leader of the Ling people had stepped into the Emperor realm. Of course, rumors were just rumors. After all, with his status, no one dared to provoke him. No, Emperor Ling. You still call me Emperor Ling. It's time to change it. Ling Tianlin shook his head and smiled. Suddenly, something appeared in his hand. It was actually two jade keys shining with clear light. This pair of dragon phoenix jade keys was given to me by my mother when I was engaged to you, Xuan Yuan's aunt. Although it is not a treasure, it can sense each other's existence. Today, I give it to you. I hope that you two can be together for 100 years. Ling Tianlin handed the jade keys to Nian Qingyun and Ling Xiao. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he heard Ling Xiao's disdainful voice. Father is too stingy. Today is my engagement day. Instead of giving me a Dao artifact, you gave me 2 jade pendants? Thank you, Uncle Ling. But at this moment, Nian Qingyun suddenly bowed and obediently hung the spirit pendant on her waist. This woman is quite easy to take care of. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Of course, he understood his father's painstaking efforts. Moreover, Ling Xiao really didn't have much of a need for spiritual treasures. But he did not expect that the cold goddess of the Dao Palace would accept such an obvious gift. Okay, it's been a long day. Go and rest. Ling Tianlin nodded and disappeared from where he was. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, raised his head to look at Nian Qingyun playfully. The corners of his mouth suddenly curled up into a mocking smile. Wife, come home with your husband. What goddess of the Dao Palace? Disaster? Ha! Just do it. Lord Ling Xiao, please mind your words. We are only engaged and not married. You, Nian Qingyun's face turned cold again. But before she could finish, the young man in front of her took a step forward and took off the white veil on her face. Chapter 115. Buzz. Ling people suddenly stirred up a gust of spiritual wind in the Shang domain. Divine rainbows descended from the sky, signifying auspiciousness. Ling Xiao stared blankly at the flawless face in front of him, and for a moment, he was a little dazed. Picturesque beauty and alluring beauty were not enough to describe Nian Qingyun's absolute beauty. If there was a word to describe it, it could only be breathtaking. At this moment, she was frowning slightly, and there was a trace of anger on her delicate face. Like an orchid in an empty valley, a cool breeze in the mountains, the spirit of heaven and earth was on her face. Her starry eyes overflowed with indifference, as unpredictable as the deep sea. Her nose was straight, and her cherry lips were slightly parted. Coupled with her cold and aloof temperament, she really looked like a fairy who had fallen from the sky and mistakenly entered the mortal world, stunning the heavens. It's better to wear it. Just as Nian Qingyun's eyes were filled with coldness and she was about to fly into a rage, Ling Xiao covered her face with a white veil again. Wife, you have to remember that only I can see this face. No one else is allowed to see it. You are a scoundrel. Nian Qingyun clenched her teeth and was about to turn and leave, but Ling Xiao suddenly picked her up by the waist and rushed up the Shaoyan Peak. Scoundrel? Well, I'll let you see what a real scoundrel is. Ling Xiao laughed heartily, ignoring the envy in the eyes of the Ling people, and instantly disappeared. You, let go of me. Let go of me. Young master, awesome. Ling Ruwei and the others stood in front of the main hall, looking at the disappearing figure with a look of shock on their faces. In the entire Xingzhou, only the descendants of the Ling people would dare to take advantage of Nian Qingyun like this. It was even rumored that all men who had touched Nian Qingyun, whether intentionally or not, had their arms cut off by her. But now, the goddess in the eyes of all the Xingzhou Heaven Pride's dreams was in the arms of Lord Ling Xiao in a rude and unreasonable manner. Even if the two were already engaged, the entire Xingzhou continent would be thrown into an uproar if news of this spread. Lord Ling Xiao, you're going to be famous. If you don't let go of me, I won't go easy on you. Nian Qingyun was in Ling Xiao's arms, and her face was red to the tips of her ears. In particular, the masculine aura that belonged to a man made Nian Qingyun's Dao heart, which had been cold for 17 years, suddenly panic a little. This damnable bastard actually dared to take advantage of her? Wife, how do you want to be impolite? Don't forget, I'm your fiancé now. If you kill me, you'll be a widow. Ling Xiao smirked. As expected, the colder a woman was, the more shy she was. He hadn't even started attacking yet, and the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace's neck was already red. Heartless great Tao, hee hee, how heartless. Ling Xiao. Waves of terrifying fluctuations suddenly came from the entire sacred realm of the Ling people. Ling Xiao coldly looked at the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace in front of him, whose body was surging with spiritual power and whose figure was gradually becoming blurry. His face suddenly turned cold. You gave your first time to Lin Shi? Which first time? Shouldn't you give me a good explanation? Of course, Ling Xiao couldn't tolerate the matter of being cuckolded. Of course, the main reason was that Nian Xingyun was really too beautiful. Not only was he lusting after her, but he also wanted to completely dominate her. So, how could love disappear? Wasn't it because you became ugly? You. Nian Xingyun's pretty face was stunned, and her aura instantly weakened. It doesn't matter if you don't say it, but if I hear it from someone else, Ling Xiao sneered and deliberately put on a sinister look. He didn't really believe that Nian Xingyun would have anything to do with Lin Shi. It was just that there were some ties between the two of them, and what he wanted to do was to completely cut off these ties. Otherwise, when he killed Lin Shi in the future, it was inevitable that there would be some unforeseen circumstances. After all, she was the chosen one, and her luck wasn't something that Ling Xiao could compare to. Of course, it was important to do things flawlessly. Hearing Ling Xiao's words, Nian Xingyun's face became even colder. That matter was the only stain on her Dao heart, especially now, although she didn't recognize Ling Xiao's identity. But the entire Shenzhou knew that she was the fiancée of the successor of the Ling people. If Lin Shi were to spout nonsense, her reputation would surely take a nosedive. Thinking about it, she had misjudged the young man who made her feel guilty for the first time. She didn't expect that he would be so angry after being defeated by Ling Xiao today and deliberately slander her. Beep, the chosen one is suspicious. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 3,000 villain points. You don't want to say it? Okay, when your reputation is ruined, you will be worthy of my reputation as an extremely rogue. Ling Xiao nodded, grabbed Nian Xingyun's jade-like hand, and pulled her into the main hall of the Cloud Peak. Let go of me. Nian Xingyun glared coldly at Ling Xiao, feeling somewhat wronged. The successor of the Ling people was indeed as fierce and ruthless as the rumors said. He was already so rude before she married him. If in the future, wife, we are engaged today and we should be happy. I can let bygones be bygones, but in the future, I hope you and I will be of one mind. Ling Xiao flipped his hand and took out the 2 colored glass cups that Duan Wuyong had given him from his Chinquan bag. He filled them with wine and handed them to Nian Xingyun. This is the immortal wine that the first elder of the Sky Sword Immortal sect has kept for a long time. Wife, have a taste. Humph. Nian Xingyun turned her head and looked away with a cold look in her eyes. She didn't want to be engaged today, but she couldn't disobey her master's order. Besides, the Ling people were powerful and Ling Xiao was domineering. She had no choice but to become the latter's fiancée. Even so, in Nian Xingyun's opinion, she was just carrying this title and gaining experience in the mortal world. As for being of one mind, that was simply nonsense. After today, she would leave the Ling people and go to various places in the eastern border to look for opportunities. Even if you don't want to, you're now Ling Xiao's fiancé. It's not impossible if you want to break off the engagement. When you defeat me, I will let you go. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and there was a hint of playfulness in his tone. Early stage Paoong, ethereal Dao Law. Nian Xingyun's strength was not weak. Even in the entire Shenzhou, there were no more than 10 people who were stronger than her at this age. But who was Ling Xiao? He was the successor of the Sky Demon's true body and a villain with his own system. As long as he didn't court death, he would definitely be a figure who could crush a generation in the future. It was simply impossible for Nian Xingyun to defeat him. Ling Xiao, you said it. Nian Xingyun's body flickered when she heard that, and she looked eager to try. Wife, no matter how much you hate me, you can't break off the engagement, right after the engagement. Come, let's not drink the first cup of milk tea of autumn. Let's drink this cup of wine. Everything can wait until tomorrow. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He drank the wine in his cup first and looked at Nian Xingyun with a playful expression. Nian Xingyun hesitated for a moment but didn't say anything in the end. Ling Xiao was right. Breaking off the engagement that day was tantamount to slapping the Ling people in the face. It would be difficult to explain it to her master. She immediately took the wine cup and drank. But why was Ling Xiao looking at her with an inexplicable evil look? Chapter 116. Come. My wife, finish this cup. There are 3 more cups left. Ling Xiao picked up the wine jar and filled Nian Xingyun's cup again. Deep in his eyes, there was a playful look as if his scheme had succeeded. Is this Ling Xiao trying to get me drunk? Nian Xingyun instantly understood Ling Xiao's intention and snorted in her heart. Doesn't he know that this drunkenness is not worth mentioning to me at all? As long as she wanted to, she could use her spiritual power to dispel the drunkenness. However, this young Master Ling people in front of her was really a little different from the rumors. At the very least, the Ling Xiao she saw today was not just an arrogant and lustful person. His cultivation and combat strength were indeed much stronger than that of ordinary geniuses. Moreover, besides the 2 of them, there were no other beautiful maidservants in the main hall at this time. However, there seemed to be an extremely powerful aura guarding outside the hall. It was most likely Ling Xiao's protector. My wife, the moon is charming tonight. Why don't we do something interesting later? Ling Xiao suddenly said with a smile as he watched Nian Xingyun drink 3 cups of wine in a row. Something interesting? Nian Xingyun's expression froze. She immediately understood what Ling Xiao meant by something interesting. Sure enough, this bastard was pretending to be serious. One's behavior after drinking was a reflection of one's character. He revealed his true nature after just 3 cups of wine. Ling Xiao, even if you and I are engaged, don't even think about taking advantage of me. To tell you the truth, you are a scoundrel in my eyes. I, Nian Xingyun, will never fall in love with someone like you. Nian Xingyun sneered with a mocking expression. To be honest, she was not afraid of this descendant of the Ling people in front of her at all. After all, her status was also one of the top geniuses in the eastern border. Moreover, both of them were peerless geniuses who had comprehended the Tao law. If they really fought, Ling Xiao might not be her match. During this period of time, rumors about Ling Xiao's invincible immortal appearance had been rampant. However, in Nian Xingyun's eyes, he was not worthy of being called invincible. At the very least, she knew that the successors of the Holy Lands and the ancient race Holy Sons were no weaker than Ling Xiao. He only crushed a few ants, and he dared to call himself invincible? How laughable! Wife, don't speak too early. Ling Xiao smiled inexplicably, and the greed in his eyes was not concealed at all. Maybe later, you will beg me to do something for you. What a joke. There is no saintess in this world that could not be solved with a cup of medicine. If so, 3 glasses. Ling Xiao, you dare to humiliate me. Nian Xingyun's pretty face grew colder, but in the next moment, her eyes suddenly widened. At this moment, she seemed to feel a sudden impulse from the depths of her heart. It was an unspeakable impulse. What did you do to me? Nian Xingyun's face gradually became a little rosy, and a blurry look appeared in her eyes. Ling Xiao, what did you do to me? Wife, what are you talking about? Ling Xiao frowned, but a sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Whether Xi Jing is hot or not, it's up to your daddy, Xiao. Do you expect me, a villain, to urge you to drink hot water every day like a bootlicker? Slowly cultivate feelings? No way. It's too slow. Nian Xingyun glared at Ling Xiao fiercely, and the spiritual power in her body suddenly spread out. However, the more she wanted to resist that impulse, the more intense the desire in her heart became. I'll kill you. Nian Xingyun rushed to Ling Xiao, but her legs suddenly became weak, and she directly fell into his arms. Wife, what are you doing? Ling Xiao pretended to be panicked and fell down, and the two immediately lay on the ground in each other's arms. What a joke. He spent 2,000 villain points to exchange for the elixir in the wine in the system. Not to mention an innocent girl in the Pong realm. Even if a divine king expert ate it, it would be difficult for him to control his feelings. As a villain, of course, this kind of despicable means was at his fingertips. Unknowingly, Ling Xiao suspected that he seemed to have become the first protagonist in the world to drug his fiancée. Wife, you don't. It's my first time. Ling Xiao resisted with all his might, but his hands pressed hard on Nian Qingyun's jade legs. Nian Qingyun suddenly felt as if something was pressing against her lower body, and the embarrassment on her pretty face almost condensed into the sunset. Ling Xiao, I'll kill you. At this point, if Nian Qingyun still didn't understand what was going on, she would really be a fool. However, she really didn't expect Ling Xiao to be so shameless. Drugging his fiancée? If this kind of thing was spread out, wasn't he afraid that the entire Ling people would be humiliated because of him? Even throughout the history of the Xingzhou, no one had ever heard of a successor drugging a woman. Ridiculous. Shameless. Despicable. Ling Xiao was simply a scumbag. However, no matter how strong the killing intent in Nian Qingyun's heart was, she gradually lost control of the impulse in her heart. She even took off the veil on her face, and the hot breath in her mouth was filled with a suppressed desire. Who would have thought that the pure and clean goddess of the ethereal Tao Palace would have such a shameful side? At this moment, Nian Qingyun wanted to die. However, she didn't have the slightest bit of strength in her body. Just like that, she was held in Ling Xiao's arms, and the last trace of clarity in her eyes gradually disappeared. It was so hot. The heat in her heart couldn't be removed at all. The more she suppressed it, the more intense it was, until her head was full of sweat. Strand after strand of fine black hair stuck to her forehead and neck. It was like a peerless painting. Wife, no, you have to control yourself. We don't talk. Kiss me. Finally, Nian Qingyun took the initiative to take off her white clothes. At this moment, Nian Qingyun forgot about being emotionless and having immortal talent. Even Ling Xiao, whose heart and eyes were filled with disdain, could no longer look at anyone else. There was only the peerless woman in front of him, who was panting lightly. This was a hysterical and unruffled pleasure. For the whole night, the cloud peak was filled with the sound of stormy waves hitting the shore. Sweat dripped down, wetting her green clothes. The clouds rolled and rushed into the sky. Until they were exhausted, the two of them fell asleep in each other's arms, forgetting how embarrassing this absurd and ridiculous thing was. The next day, the entire Ling people's sacred realm suddenly heard a tragic scream. Ling Xiao looked gently at the picturesque woman lying on top of him, with a touch of tenderness at the corner of his mouth. Wife, you're awake. Ling Xiao, I'm going to kill you. Nian Qingyun got up angrily, and the thin quilt on her body gently slid down, exposing her perfect and graceful body to Ling Xiao's eyes. So beautiful. Even though the two of them had sex last night, Ling Xiao couldn't help but praise at this time. Nian Qingyun, you're the darling of heaven and earth. It's not an exaggeration to use all the beautiful words on you. You bastard. Scum. Wife, it's still early. Why don't we do it again? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, grabbed Nian Qingyun's jade-like hand, and pulled her into his arms again. Before the latter could struggle, his mouth had already covered Nian Qingyun's lips. Woo woo. Chapter 117. Ling Xiao screamed as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Nian Qingyun took advantage of this opportunity to escape. She put on her clothes and stood in the hall. She felt a chill, as if winter was coming and everything would be frozen. Woman, you're really heartless. Ling Xiao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked gloomy. You pushed me down last night. Besides, I did it for your own good. Ling Xiao didn't forget to look down at the pool of blood on the ground. His eyes were filled with mockery. Ling Xiao, if I don't kill you today, I swear I'm not human. Nian Xingyun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this rascal. She clenched her fist, and a wisp of ethereal intent spread out. However, just as she raised her leg and was about to pounce towards Ling Xiao, a young girl's voice suddenly sounded from the top of the hall. Why are you fighting again? Aren't you tired after fighting for the whole night? Gulp! Nian Xingyun's feet trembled as she looked up in horror. She saw a girl in a black dress sitting on the beam of the hall, swinging her legs. You were beating Ling Xiao up last night. Why are you screaming more miserably than him? Sealed spirit. Ling Xiao's expression was also somewhat sluggish. He looked at the little girl's confused face and didn't know what to say. She could walk out of the 8 Desolation Glazed Pagoda? How was that possible? If she really came from the 9th level demonic bone, how could she walk out of the God-sealing pagoda suppression? In an instant, a gust of cold air rushed to Ling Xiao's heart. Who is she? Who are you? You. Why are you here? Nian Xingyun was completely dumbfounded. From the girl's words, it seemed that she had been watching the live broadcast all night. Why didn't she feel any aura? Also, why didn't she have any aura? Why did she feel her heart palpitate? Who are you? Why did you fight with Ling Xiao? Also, why don't you use your spiritual power when you fight? Why do you have to take turns on the ground to crush? Feng Ling's figure descended from the top of the hall, and the curiosity on her face made Nian Xingyun feel embarrassed. This girl was obviously inexperienced in the ways of the world, but why did she give him so much pressure? Little girl, don't blame me for being impolite if you keep talking nonsense. Nian Xingyun raised her head and glanced at Ling Xiao. When she saw the solemn expression on his face, she was a little puzzled. To be able to enter Ling Xiao's bedroom at will, it seemed that the relationship between the two of them was not ordinary. But why was Ling Xiao so nervous, as if he was facing a great enemy? You're welcome? You bullied Ling Xiao last night, so I'll kill you now. As soon as Feng Ling finished speaking, her figure instantly disappeared. Spirit seal, stop. Ling Xiao was shocked. He stepped behind Nian Xingyun, and the Emperor's star robe condensed on its own, blocking Feng Ling hiss. At this moment, Nian Xingyun clearly felt a sense of death rising from the bottom of her heart. Unknowingly, cold sweat flowed down her forehead. What a strange movement technique. What a terrifying cultivation. But when did such a monstrous girl appear in the Shengzhou? Looking at her, she should be about 10 years old, right? But why had she never heard of such a monstrous girl in the Ling people? Ling Xiao, she clearly wants to kill you. Why are you protecting her? A trace of confusion flashed across Feng Ling's big eyes. Ling Xiao just smiled bitterly and said in a heavy tone, because she will be my wife. No matter what she did to me, I will not allow anyone to hurt her unless they step over my dead body. Ling Xiao deliberately said these words for Nian Xingyun to hear. He definitely could not do something like dying for a woman. After all, he was a villain. Why should he learn from the Chosen One? However, Nian Xingyun was his first woman. If others dared to bully her, Ling Xiao would naturally not allow it. At this moment, Ling Xiao deliberately pretended to be deep in thought. As for his purpose, of course, he wanted to take the opportunity to gain the favor of the Chosen One. Beep. Congratulations to the host. You have been slightly touched by the Chosen One. Luck points increased by 100. Nian Xingyun looked up in a daze and saw the tall figure of the young man in front of her. The murderous intent in her heart suddenly dissipated a little. In the end, she was only a 17-year-old girl. Although she cultivated the great Tao of ruthlessness, how could Tao techniques suppress the word love? What nonsense is this? I really don't understand you. Feng Ling's aura dissipated, and she rolled her eyes at Ling Xiao. But this wife of yours is quite pretty. Haha, you were here the whole night? Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly. He knew that Feng Ling could completely hide her aura and that she could easily travel through space. But he really did not expect that this girl could walk out of the ancient glazed pagoda. When he thought about how his battle with Nian Qingyun was seen from the beginning to the end by this little girl, even Ling Zhao's face felt hot. Yes, I wanted to return your little dragon, but I saw that you were busy, so I did not disturb you. Feng Ling nodded seriously. With a wave of her hand, the demonic dragon Hua Hua instantly flew into Ling Zhao's arms. The sadness in her eyes made the latter's heart turn cold. This little guy probably suffered a lot in Feng Ling's hands. But at this moment, Ling Xiao could also feel that Hua Hua's cultivation level seemed to have broken through to the profound clear stage. In one night, it broke through several major stages. Ling Xiao looked at Feng Ling in surprise, but the latter just snorted disdainfully and disappeared on the spot. It's a dragon. At the side, Nian Qingyun's face was filled with shock again. From the little black dragon, she felt a kind of terrifying demonic aura that made one's heart palpitate. Although she did not go down the mountain often these years, she had seen many strong demonic beasts. Moreover, there was a 9 heavens golden phoenix by her side, but its demonic aura seemed to be inferior to that of the black dragon in front of her. Could it be that this was really fate? A true phoenix demonic dragon? Whoosh! Hua Hua, who was originally trembling in Ling Zhao's arms, instantly turned into an afterimage and flew into Nian Qingyun's arms with an aggrieved expression. Does it mean that it likes me? Nian Qingyun looked at Ling Xiao helplessly. Then, as if she thought of something, her face turned cold again. Who was that little girl just now? Would you believe me if I said I don't know? Ling Xiao smiled bitterly, but his eyes were fixed on Hua Hua. This little bastard is really clever. After all, women were always overflowing with love and had no resistance to cute things. Forget it if you don't want to say. Don't think I don't know your reputation in the Xingzhou. You won't even let a 10-year-old girl go. You're worse than a beast. Nian Qingyun sneered, but the killing intent from before was gone. Chapter 118. Wife, you've really misunderstood. I only know that she's called Feng Ling, but I really don't know where she comes from. Also, the rumors in the Xingzhou continent are all spread by people who are jealous of me. They're jealous of my good looks, jealous of my talent, jealous of my noble status. How can you believe the words of those lemon spirits? Ling Xiao sighed. The fact that Feng Ling could walk out of the glazed pagoda was also meaningful to him. He had to think of a way to find out the whereabouts of this girl. Otherwise, everything he did in the future would be exposed. Once she wanted to kill him, it would be too easy. The real sky demon, the killing of the chosen one, the soul-searching of the 9th princess of the heavenly fox clan, and the drugging of the goddess of the Dao Palace. Ling Xiao would not be able to atone for all these things. You saved my life today, so I will spare your life. Now we are even. But the next time I see you, I will kill you. Nian Qingyun snorted coldly, her eyebrows full of gloominess. It was not that she did not want to kill Ling Xiao, but the fluctuation outside the hall was too terrifying. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable, but it was not worth it to die in the hands of the Ling people. Her face became cold again, and she reached out to stroke Hua Hua. Do you want to play with me? Hua Hua nodded, but when she felt the coldness in Ling Xiao's eyes, she quickly shook her head. Ling Xiao, what happened yesterday, if I hear from anyone? Nian Qingyun thought for a long time, but did not know how to threaten Ling Xiao. Since this scum could shamelessly drug his fiancée, he would not care about threats. Would he? Haha, it seems that you still don't know your husband well enough. Why don't you ask around in the Ling people and the Universal Demon Sect? Your husband's character is the model of the Xingzhou. Chastity, self-respect, kindness, honesty, integrity, and devotion. These are all synonyms for your husband. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and his imperial robe shone with starlight. If one did not know the character of the young master of the Ling people, he looked quite fairy-like. But now, Nian Qingyun smiled coldly. Just as she was about to open her mouth to mock him, the door to the hall in the distance suddenly opened. Young master, I did it. A graceful figure flashed over and stood in front of Ling Xiao, roaring excitedly. Ling Xiao, you, shameless to the extreme. Nian Xingyun glanced at the woman in front of her, and the killing intent in her eyes reached its peak. Then, she grabbed Floey's neck and threw it to the ground. Ling Xiao, you'd better not walk out of the holy land of Ling people. Swoosh! Nian Xingyun's figure turned into a rainbow and disappeared from the hall. On the other hand, Ling Xiao looked at Nine Nether helplessly. Other than bitterness, there was also a trace of greed in his eyes. Big sister, if you succeed, then succeed. Can you put on some clothes first? However, as expected, a member of the Dark Phoenix clan, Nine Nether's skin was a wild bronze color, and it revealed boundless temptation, especially that pair of straight and beautiful legs, which were slender and well-proportioned, without a trace of fat. Gulp! Ling Xiao had just eaten his fill, but he seemed to be hungry again. Young master, the joy on Nine Nether's face gradually froze. Especially at this moment, Ling Xiao's eyes actually made her feel cold. Nonsense, how could she not feel cold? Big sister, you're naked. Ah! Nine Nether seemed to have suddenly thought of something. She looked down at her body, and her pretty face instantly turned red. Swoosh! Sigh! Ling Xiao sighed and looked up at the sky above the Ling people. The teasing in his eyes had long disappeared, and only a trace of ocean-like depth was left. This engagement banquet finally came to an end. The ending was not bad. Not only did a new son of destiny appear, but Nian Qingyun also successfully got involved with him. The chaotic spiritual divine body was indeed very mysterious. In just one night, Ling Xiao actually felt that his cultivation level had increased significantly. However, what made him a little puzzled was, where did Nian Qingyun's over 10,000 providence come from? Could it be that a mere divine body was worth 10,000 providence? Obviously not. After all, Ling Tian also had the sword vein divine body, but his providence was only 2,000. Moreover, after returning to Xingzhou, Ling Xiao also discovered that the sons of destiny in this world all had thousands of providence. In this way, Nian Xingyun seemed to be a little different. Could it be that she's hiding other secrets? Reincarnation of the strong? Possession by a powerful expert? Or, young master, Nine Nether's figure reappeared in the main hall. There was still a trace of shyness on her face, which added a little charm for no reason. Not bad, Divine King Realm. It seems that you were not a nobody in the Mingfeng clan when you were alive. Ling Xiao sized Nine Nether up, and the corner of his mouth gradually raised into a smile. Not only was the girl in front of him extremely beautiful, but her cultivation level was also very terrifying. She was actually a 5th-stage Divine King, and could be considered the strongest among the people that Ling Xiao trusted. How is it? Do you remember what happened in the sacred sect? Of course, what Ling Xiao was really concerned about was how the Mingfeng clan was annihilated back then. After all, according to the rumors in Xingzhou, this clan was accepted by the sacred sect as the Ling clan and serve in the heavenly sacred mountain in the center of Xingzhou. Unexpectedly, the entire clan was annihilated in the blink of an eye. No, I just vaguely remember a lot of blood was shed and many people were crying and wailing. Not only my Mingfeng clan, but many. Nine Nether suddenly covered her face with a painful expression. Obviously, that memory was too torturous for her. It seems that your memory has not fully recovered. Nine Nether, what was your cultivation level when you were alive? Ling Xiao frowned. He had long known that Nine Nether's consciousness was sealed by someone, but he did not expect that after she reconstructed her physical body, she still could not break that seal. I don't remember clearly, but it was definitely higher than now. It seems that you have to wait for your strength to fully recover before you can recover that memory. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment and suddenly raised his head to look at Nine Nether. Nine Nether, I have something I need you to do now. Please tell me, young master. Even though she had already recovered her God King cultivation, she was still extremely respectful in front of Ling Xiao. It was all thanks to this successor of the ancient clan that she was able to reconstruct her physical body so quickly. If she followed him, there would be hope for revenge. Follow that woman just now and report her whereabouts to me at all times. Ling Xiao sighed softly. He was not worried that Nian Xingyun would seek death. After all, how could a destined woman be so weak? He was just worried that once this woman went crazy, he would not be able to control her. After all, the cultivation method she cultivated was against the pleasures between men and women. And Ling Xiao's actions last night were really shameless. But so what if he was shameless? As long as he could make the destined woman submit, he had plenty of shameless methods. Yes, young master. Nine Nether nodded and instantly chased after Nian Xingyun. Lin Shi, you have to hurry up and help me find the opportunity. The entire hall suddenly became empty. With a thought, Ling Xiao's sky demon Qi immediately spread out from his body. Given his strength, there were few opponents among the younger generation. But Ling Xiao's enemies were not as simple as the younger generation. The sacred sect was like a huge rock that pressed down on his heart. Sooner or later, he would become the enemy of the entire Xingzhou. And what Nine Nether said today gave Ling Xiao a lot of pressure. It was obvious that the sacred sect, which was like a god in the eyes of the world, was secretly doing some shady business. Was the extermination of the Dark Phoenix clan accidental, or was it intentional? If it was intentional, what were they plotting? You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.